Going bust.
Car makers Vauxhall have announced the closure of their Luton factory, putting more than 1,000 jobs at risk.
Days after Ford also revealed plans to cut 800 positions, leaving many to ask if the enthusiasm for electric vehicles is waning.
The business blues don't end there. London's Smithfield market is set to shut up shop after 800 years.
A ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah begins a monumental turn of events in the Middle East. Is this the biggest win in Joe Biden's presidency?
I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end.
On this fuel poverty awareness day, more than a third of older people say they're dreading the winter months and will find it hard to manage without the winter fuel payment.
Over half of homeowners admit they are prepared for flooding, or they're not prepared for flooding. Warnings of a stormy winter ahead. We find out how you can flood-proof your home.
Time to ban social media in the workplace. We're debating that as it emerges that the messaging service is being used as evidence in hundreds of employment tribunals.
And in the sport this morning, what is going on at Manchester City as they wobble again and throw away a 3-0 lead at home to Feyenoord? Different story for Arsenal. They score 5 away at Lisbon at unbeaten Sporting, and more trouble for referee David Coote.
Morning. It's a wet and blustery start across the southern parts this morning. Further north, there's some frost and fog around, and more of that to come through tonight. Join me later for more details.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning, halfway through the week.
I'm Isabel Webster. This is GB News Breakfast.
You know what?
Who are you? Who are you?
I forgot.
Did
Got
you?
to say who you are. That's all right. I'll just say who I am.
Yeah.
There he is. It's Eamonn. He needs no introduction.
It's the Isabel Webster show with that other fella.
That guy.
Nice to have you back.
George
again.
Clooney. There you go.
Yeah, what's happening to Man City?
Oh, it's unbelievable, isn't it? I'm trying to work it out.
Very interesting.
Why are we laughing? As we're saying this, I have no idea. 6 games now without a win. And I thought I'd come back after the Spurs thing and after that amazing result on Saturday. That's why I haven't been here, by the way. I've just been celebrating for that since Saturday.
But look at that, to have a 3-0 lead against Feyenoord.
I know. I went to bed and it was 3-0. And I thought, this is done and dusted. They've absolutely walked it. Woke up, missed 3 goals. Unbelievable. Continues a real wobble.
OK, keep us posted, my friend.
I will.
We are leading on job losses around the country.
Yeah, the owners of the car maker Vauxhall have announced plans to close its company's van-making factory in Luton, which is putting more than 1,000 jobs at risk. That's just days after Ford also announced plans to cut 800 jobs.
Now, the closure has been blamed on flagging electric vehicle sales and the financial penalties imposed on manufacturers if those sales make up less than 22% of overall sales. By 2035, that will rise to 80% of all sales, but nobody is buying.
And the decision has spurred the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, to review the electric vehicle mandate, promising fast-tracked change. OK, well, in the studio now, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal. James, is this a surprise?
No, because Stellantis was warning back in July that they were going to potentially have to look at job cuts going to have to take effect because of the changes to do with the EV mandate. And yet now we see sort of 4 months on, they're actually going to follow up on that rhetoric. But it's also part, I think, of quite a grim pattern overall, with lots of different car companies obviously cutting jobs. And we also know from, car automobile industry leaders that the EV mandate is something that's really been worrying businesses for a long, long time. But
this is the antithesis of growth, isn't it? I mean, the Chancellor looking more and more beleaguered with every single day. How is she going to spin this? And what can be done about it? I mean, if they're going to fast-track a review of these green quotas, what does that mean? Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, this was basically, with spectacular timing, Jonathan Reynolds, the Business Secretary, last night had to address a sort of car manufacturer
black tie dinner. And it wasn't really clear what he means by it, because he's saying that, decarbonisation is not deindustrialisation, the idea that just because we're going to be doing green targets doesn't mean we should be cutting jobs. And yet he's very, very clear they're going to be standing by that 2030 target, which was watered down was strengthened from 2035, which Rishi Sunak wanted to do. And it's not really clear what they mean by that. I mean, because next year, of course, Eamonn, you said the target's there, 22% currently, it's going to be 28% next year. Industry is warning that the current mandate is unsustainable. They've got discounts which can't be kept up, etc. And people, frankly, either think they're too expensive or there aren't enough EV charging places. So I don't see any kind of short-term, medium-term way in which the government can get around this.
And the reality is we're seeing job losses as a result. Telegraph leading with the headline, electric vehicle rules may be watered down.
I mean, I'd be sceptical. I mean, it may well happen in terms of sort of tweaking the sort of discounts, etc. But as I say, the 2030 target remains. That's very much the centre mission of this government, with Ed Miliband's talk about green targets, etc., the Green New Deal. And of course, I think that you look at part of the different companies as well, it's all very much part of the same similar pattern. And given that, of course, the proud history in Luton, working class town, 120 years of car manufacturing, all of that's going to be put at risk now as a result of this.
Look, when you think about who's not buying, not who is buying, who's not buying and why they're not buying, I don't have an electric vehicle simply because I would think, well, is it right? Is the time right? Are they developed enough? The differential in the selling price seems to be really bad. And why are people not buying them? Do you have one, Isabel?
I don't have one, and I look outside and I see there's always parking spaces if you have an electrical vehicle because nobody's driving them. That, still the demand isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the kind of support of the scheme, they'll say 1 in 4 cars at the moment, almost 1 in 4 cars is being sold is an electric vehicle, but that's only because of current unsustainable discount pricing, according to the industry. They say the kind of money that's going into it can't carry on, and also they worry about charging points across the country, as you say, because this infrastructure takes time. So this is always the issue, because I think the government targets predict something like 25% more EV cars to be sold at this point than are actually being sold. So it's the difficulty, again, of setting state-mandated targets for an industry that's very rapidly changing, and consumer taste change as well.
Yeah, and also I suppose these state-mandated targets, as you describe them, or quotas, are actually sort of playing into the hands of the Chinese.
Yeah.
Because whilst, they're not making the sales here, the Chinese are making an absolute killing in this sector, and we're not competitive.
Absolutely, and of course it's very much, again, the sad story of sort of post-industrial car making in Britain, which is that we used to make hundreds of thousands in the 1960s, 70s, etc. Right now we've got quite a small market that's going to get more and more small as a result of these changes, and as you say, Isabel, the Chinese are just going to walk in here and take over this place.
But here we are, a week on from COP29, where the Prime Minister was there last week. This is a government committed to trying to be a green administration. Do you think they're more likely to come up with some sort of subsidy plan, for example, rather than to just give up on their green agenda?
Yeah, I think that's probably likely. I think the targets are unlikely to get watered down. Remember, of course, and Rishi Sunak tried to do that last year, and Labour got very annoyed about that. That said, I do think this is kind of not necessarily party political, in that the Conservatives were going to do many of these things anyway. I think there's probably more likely some kind of subsidy, but I don't really think it's going to change the overall state of UK automobile manufacturing, which also has outside things, like you say, like inflation costs and business pressures as well.
Well, electric cars, very much part of the future, we hope, we think. But then we look at Smithfield Market, Billingsgate Market, we look at the idea of these places trading for 800 years and about to close down in the next couple of years. What's going on there?
Yep, so for 800 years there's been the Smithfield's Meat Market in London. The current site was erected 150 years ago, but now that and Billinghurst Fish Market as well are going to be moved out, I think, from 2028, following a result from the City of London Corporation yesterday. So it really ends those kind of long traditions of venues selling meat in the centre of London. It's part of a European-wide trend we see elsewhere, but really, I mean, the space is going to be used to turn into mixed use marketing aspects, and property will be sold as a result of that.
I think the sadness is that they had this Dagenham site, didn't they, that they were planning to relocate both markets to, and that's just gone. What will the impact be of this? Funnily enough, my cab driver this morning was absolutely devastated. He heard me on a call with the editors here, and he was like, "Did you just say the fish market's closing? I live right next to it. My mum likes once a month we treat ourselves." It's such a lovely tradition, and so steeped in history, as you say. What will happen, and what happens to the restaurant sector that so much depends on those fresh produce coming into the capital?
Well, I think that a lot of it's going to be stuffing mouths with gold, which is the next 2 years they've announced a £300 million plan, so I suspect they'll buy off opposition, really. But as you say, Isabel, I mean, it's just going to presumably mean the end of that. And I was watching the older Hitchcock film the other night, Frenzy, which was set in the early 70s, which was when the Covent Garden markets were closing, and Hitchcock purposely filmed there so he could record all that for posterity. I imagine it's just going to go the way of Covent Garden, and it'll turn into it'll hark back to their traditions, but there won't be the same kind of culture as there is now.
Yeah, tourist attraction.
Probably.
OK, thanks very much,
Thanks,
James.
Isabel.
Let us know your reaction to those stories this morning. Perhaps you are affected by the job losses, perhaps you are an EV fan, or perhaps you are really sad to hear about Smithfield and Billingsgate fish market closures. Let us know your thoughts this morning. GBNews.com.
We want your thoughts on air. So we want to hear with your say, but we also, if you want to Zoom us or get in touch by video with us this morning, we're very happy to do that. If you would tell us your story as to why you wouldn't buy electric, why you would buy electric, your whole experience of electric, or what do you think the government should do about all of this and the targets that are being proposed. So get in touch, tell us you're available, and we'll get you on the telly.
Now, some big news overnight. A long-awaited ceasefire agreement has been reached between Israel and the Lebanese militia group Hezbollah.
Now, it commenced early this morning. It will see Israel gradually withdraw forces from southern Lebanon over the next 60 days.
The US and France were responsible for brokering the deal. Let's have a listen now to President Biden's announcement.
The deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time. The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
Moments after that announcement, Israeli strikes were reported in northern Lebanon around the border, which saw 3 people killed.
Well, with the deal, it's still not addressing the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip. President Emmanuel Macron hopes it will be an open path to end the war in Gaza.
Let's now go to our news home and security editor, Mark White, with his take on this one this morning. Mark?
Good morning to you. Yes, we're about 4 hours into this ceasefire, and pretty much it seems to be holding. There was a rocket fired in southern Israel, but that, of course, came from Gaza. Another conflict that you mentioned there, with no resolution yet in sight to that conflict between Israel and the terror group Hamas. But at least now they have this ceasefire with that group Hezbollah in the north, which has fired tens of thousands of rockets, missiles and launched drones into Israel since the terrorist attacks, really, that took place on October the 7th, or the very next day, October the 8th. Hezbollah saying they were doing that in solidarity and support for those fighters down in Hamas, and it continued to fire throughout that year until Israel decided enough was enough and launched what was an audacious set of attacks initially. Remember the pager bombs that exploded that were being worn and carried predominantly by Hezbollah operatives around Lebanon, and that was followed by strikes on the command and control senior leadership in Hezbollah, including the man at the very top, Hassan Nasrallah, who was taken out by Israel as well. So there is no doubt that over recent months, Israel has done very significant damage to this terrorist group, and that paved the way for the Israeli cabinet late last night to agree to this ceasefire. And the ceasefire will involve Israel over the next 60 days gradually retreating from southern Lebanon. The Hezbollah fighters, we're told, will move north of a river called the Litani River, which is about 20 miles from the Israeli border, where they're supposed to have been all the time under a UN agreement. But of course, they had breached that UN agreement over a number of years and were firing from positions south of the Litani River. So if things hold, then Israel will gradually withdraw, and the hope is that communities both in southern Lebanon and in northern Israel, after many, many months, can finally return home.
Who would be policing all of this, Mark?
Well, we're told that the UN, who did a fairly woeful job, it has to be said, of policing it initially, with Hezbollah building their tunnel systems and their rocket launching and missile launching infrastructure in that area south of the Litani River, would still be responsible for a large part of the policing. But this time around, there is an emphasis on trying to get more of the Lebanese army personnel down into that area in southern Lebanon as well. Remember, of course, Hezbollah is a terrorist group within Lebanon itself. The government is a government that Israel tells us that it is not at war with. It has, to an extent, a sort of semi-functioning government that rules large parts of Lebanon, but in conjunction with, of course, these terrorist militia who are in large parts of Lebanon as well, particularly in the south.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. It'd be interesting to see if this is a catalyst for perhaps peace and some sort of ceasefire in Gaza as well.
Let's see what else is happening. Time 6:15. 7 people now still missing in the Red Sea after a diving boat carrying mostly tourists capsized off the coast of Egypt. 2 Britons are thought to be amongst them. Yesterday, 5 more people were rescued. Here's what one of the survivors had to say.
Appreciate it, and the reception on board,
yes,
with a warm shower,
yeah,
the dinner after, and all the care they took, because we were shaking with cold and shaking, and they warmed us up.
The Tobacco and Vapes Bill has cleared its first hurdle in the House of Commons, with a majority of 368 MPs voting to approve it at its second reading. The Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, was among the 47 MPs to vote against the bill.
Another storm, this one's called Connell, is set to bring heavy rain to southern England. That's as many regions are still left clearing up from Storm Bert. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings for rainfall in several areas into this afternoon.
Lots of water on the roads, certainly around the capital this morning. That storm Connell will cause lots of headaches for people already, as we were just saying, affected by Storm Bert. Let's get a look at the forecast and what it means for where you are with Alex Burkill.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of 2 halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a largely dry picture, good deal of sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland. So most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note. But as a result, we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost, and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems, particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will start to see some clouds, some rain pushing in from the west-southwest, and here the winds are going to be picking up as well. Temperatures will be starting to pick up as we see something a bit milder coming in from the west, but for many it is going to be another chilly day.
chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, still to come, floods, of course, still affecting us, storms affecting us. No end in sight to these. Find out how to protect your home on all of that, if it is possible, next.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Storm Bert is out the door. Storm Connell now shaping up for the weekend. A new research from AXA, the insurance company, has found more than 50% of you are unprepared if flooding was to hit your home or business.
Well, joining us now is the Director of Risk Management at AXA UK, Doogie Barnett. Good morning to you, Doogie. For those people then who are totally unprepared, any top tips for them?
Yes, good morning. For me, flood is all about preparation. It's about information, preparing it. There's many different types of flood can impact individuals. And we've got to also remember this is a human issue. It's not just about property. So today we've issued a report looking at flooding, extreme heat, but also how communities can prepare, react and recover based on individual English parliamentary constituencies.
Dougie, I don't know, I look at this and I think it's wishful thinking how you can actually prepare your house for that sort of onslaught there.
Eamonn, again, it's understanding what your risk is. There's some great products now where you can fit and forget. Things like you can now get flood front doors, which once your door's shut, that protects your home. Air bricks and things like that. But one thing we've got to look here is how the government prepare for this and then now spend our money and protect our communities. Now, we've already seen potential flood protection schemes reduced from 2,000 down to 1,500 going forward. But you look at the benefit of flood protection, and these are the big schemes protecting the properties and the pictures you're looking at now. Now, if you look at 2019, 2020, good quality flood defences saved our country £2.1 billion.
Yeah. You see, Dougie, it gets to this time of the year and you guys must, just face it with dread, buckling up and thinking, oh, here we go. What's this going to cost us?
No, for me, now, if you look at flooding now, I've been involved in risk management for over 30 years. You look back, we can all look back. Flooding's not just winter now. We're now seeing flooding throughout the year. And one thing that we in AXA do is very much is being prepared to help our customers. Now, when the worst happens, we are there for them. It's very much, now, how can we react immediately? How can we get them through the first 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? Often it's relocating them to different homes so they can actually get back and start living again. But that in its own can create its own challenges. It's supporting people.
Well, Dougie, as you say, the fact that this is becoming so much more frequent for you as insurers, can people continue to expect to get insurance on their homes if they are repeatedly flooded? Or in the future, do you think we're going to see an increase of, frankly, uninsurable and therefore unsellable homes?
What we'll see in the future, and what's true now, is sometimes it's more difficult just going to the internet, put in your details and get a quote. For householders, and let's not forget businesses here. Businesses are equally impacted by this. Sometimes you've got to give the insurer a bit more information. And what I would suggest there is every high street has got good quality insurance brokers. Most insurance brokers have got access to different types of flood protection. Possibly not always well known to the public, but use your brokers. Now, it's no different to anything else. If your house has been broken into, most people put an intruder alarm in, improve locks, put better doors on, etc. Flood's no different. There's really good products out there. And for us, education, information is essential to make sure we get that across the public. Hence, the AXA report today, breaking it down by individual constituency to let people see what they're actually impacted by.
Very interesting, Dougie. I didn't. You're educating me on all of this. I didn't realise there were such options. But my friend, just as we finish, a serious question to you here, and that is the pronunciation of your name. Now, Isabel goes Doogie.
Well, because we have a colleague, Doogie, but actually
no, his name's Dougie.
Yeah, pre-Doogie, I'd have said Dougie. Sorry.
So is Dougie a Doogie or a Dougie?
I get everything name, and I get Dougie, I get Doogie, I also get Dougal. So that's from my friends.
I like Dougal.
My colleagues in France, it's Dougalas. So I get many different things. We're all the same people.
Okay, good man. Anyway, Dougie, Doogie, Dougal, whoever, thank you.
Dougala.
Very good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Right.
You know who Dougal was?
Oh, gosh, you always do this to me.
Dougal was a dog in Magic Roundabout.
Oh, OK, I did watch that as a child. I don't remember.
Wasn't that what the dog was called?
I don't remember it, but I did watch it.
Yeah.
Anyway, you might remember at home, so let us know. He's so polite. If I would have specified one particular pronunciation myself, rather than to say whatever you like.
Yeah, but it's quite, I think it is quite more an anglicised way to say Doogie. It's English.
Is it?
Whereas I think
said Dougie.
Celtic... You didn't, you said Doogie at the start.
Because we've got a Doogie colleague, and that I've never met a Doogie in my life, but I know loads of Dougies.
Well, the Doogie that you call Dougie, or Dougie that you call Doogie,
Irish.
his name's Dougie, it's not Doogie.
Oh, right, I don't know. Anyway, I'd have spelt Dougie D-U-G-G-Y, so if it's D-O-U-G-I-E,
like
which this was, then it's Doogie. I don't know. We can split hairs, but actually we've got some more exciting news to share, haven't we? Well, we have our biggest and our greatest Great British giveaway. How much is it?
It's amazing, Isabel. It is £50,000. It is cash, it is tax-free, and it could be yours. Have a go.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
Men's League results right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Cumbria, the A6 is closed each way off junction 42 of the M6 south of Carlisle after an accident. On the M56 in Cheshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed eastbound after an accident at junction 12 at Runcorn. On the M6 in Warwickshire, the southbound exit at junction 2 for the northbound M69 is closed after an accident. In London, the North Circular is closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow because of flooding. There are queues from Waterworks Corner at South Woodford. On the M20 in Kent, it's down to a single lane eastbound where there's an accident just after junction 10 south of Ashford. In West Sussex, the A23 is partly blocked northbound by an overturned vehicle between Hand Cross and the M23 at Pease Pottage. And also in West Sussex, the A283 is blocked westbound where a lorry overturned off the A24 Washington roundabout. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A pensioner has been sacked as one of Santa's helpers for sending anti-Labour social media posts. So it looks like Santa is going to have even more work to do this Christmas. And joining me now is the former Santa helper, Paul Cleary. Paul, marvellous. You've still got your old hat on there and your beard. Wonderful to see. But Paul, this story, pardon the pun, is absolutely crackers. Tell us what happened to you.
It's unbelievable, to tell you the truth. I've been accused of sending racist and or derogatory remarks on my Facebook page about the Labour government. I received a letter from the trust where I volunteered as Santa. The posts in question about Labour cancelling Christmas. I've upset the board, members and volunteers, and are deemed inappropriate. As you're aware, a lot of time and effort is put into organising the Wath Christmas Festival, which is done by a small group of dedicated volunteers.
They even banned you from making donations to the Montgomery Hall Food Bank, a local food bank. They said they didn't even want your food.
That's right. That's right. And then in the next breath, they're asking for Christmas donations.
Without going into any details, I understand that the post was about comparing Keir Starmer to an elf. Is that right? So was it an elf and safety issue?
It was an elf with Keir Starmer's face on it in front of number 10, but the 10 was the I and O in idiot.
Right. I mean, you know, it's not the kind of thing that Santa would normally say, but it's a free country, and for Santa got the sack.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Oh, you're angry this morning. You've got a lot to say. Betty says, imagine the future. All gas and oil banned. Rely solely on wind power, solar power. Only electric cars allowed on the roads. Oh, wait a minute. No capacity to store green energy. During power cuts, no electricity. No shops open as tills won't work. No computers working. No cars on roads. So pretty dire.
It's not a rosy picture for Betty, is it? And lots of people concerned about the situation in Luton. The closure of the Luton plant is not just the jobs in the car plant, it's the knock-on to the community there. And people just saying, this is from Jones, electric cars are just not ready for people for long distances. They can't withstand bad weather, the cost of batteries and the resale. It's a no-go. It's all a con. So keep your thoughts coming in.
I'll tell you what my thoughts are. Politicians and all this crusades they're on and whatever. A socialist government should be here to protect jobs. It should be there for workers. That's what the Labour Party should be about. Were they protecting 1,000 jobs at Luton? I mean, Vauxhall at Luton has been going on for millions of years. And now Luton done, dead, end off.
And Nissan warning that there will be job cuts in Sunderland as well as a part of all of this. And, of course, last week we had Ford saying 800 jobs in the UK to be cut. It is not a rosy picture.
No. So the big thing is the car companies, if they don't sell electric cars...
They get penalties.
Like big penalties, like 20 grand or something, they're charged.
So it's just not viable.
What's the point of that? Who's that serving? Paul Coyte, he's going to serve us now with the sport. Paul.
I think you said, what's the point in me? But, you know, that's...
No, Paul, I know what the point of view, my friend, is. Man City fans could be saying, what's the point of what's going on here?
Oh, I know.
And ironically, Pep's just signed a new contract. A lot of managers will be gone after lack of 6 wins.
Isn't that crazy? So the thing is, it's the moment he signed that new 2-year contract, things then started going like this. And it's incredible. They haven't won in 6. And this is going back now. They're saying this is the worst run of results going back to the 1960s. And so there are Manchester City fans, you know, true Man City fans that remember when they were not owned by extremely rich Middle Eastern sheikhs. Those days when they were shaky more than owned by a sheikh, if you know what I'm saying. They went down to the old Division 3 and then it was a disaster. So there's a lot of the older ones that are looking at it thinking, oh, yeah, this rings a bell. But it's not expected of the Manchester City now. So last night they played Feyenoord, who are 3rd in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. And they went 3-0 up. You're thinking, this is it, Man City are back. And it's those wobbles that they have in defence. One goal goes in, and then the whole thing collapses. We know that Rodri, who won the Ballon d'Or, is out, but these are still world-class players. This is not just one player. You can't just go, oh, it's terrible because of Rodri, and it's awful that he's missing. And there's great players there. And then Kevin De Bruyne came on, and it got worse when he came on, and they end up shipping 3 goals in the space of 14 minutes. They've got Liverpool at Anfield at the weekend, so that could be 7. And Pep, as you can imagine, is not very happy. This is what he had to say.
Oh, no, I'll continue with the same, so it's not necessary to say anything to them. They know it perfectly. So, the 3 episodes, and, you know, they didn't allow us to win what we needed for many, many reasons, not just for the terms of qualification or get the points to go through, for, many other reasons, and it's what it is. So difficult to swallow right now, and... So the game was good. We scored 3. We could score more. We do everything, but at the end, we give away, especially the first one. And after, we are not stable enough.
He's shifting uncomfortably. You see him. He's this, and he's here, and he's there.
That's good for him. I think it's good for all these top clubs to have a period of.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I think it's good for? To actually get people to think maybe British managers aren't such a bad idea after all. This obsession with continental managers is just, I just think it's ridiculous. And I think a lot of these guys like Pep, you can argue, is the game more attractive or is it more mechanical or whatever? I don't think football today is as attractive as it was in the 70s and 80s. Do you agree?
I do agree when it comes to... But I don't know whether I'm looking back and thinking, oh, yeah, I remember when I was younger and I did... And life was different then, and whether it's that, I mean, they're better sides now.
Yeah,
they're better sides. And also, you
football's more boring.
You can't knock Pep Guardiola.
Look, I mean, you just mentioned the Man City of years ago and whatever. You know, the Tony Books, the Francis Bells, the Colin Lees, the Mike Summerbys, whatever. So many attractive players doing individual things. I think of Man United, people talk about George Best, what a genius George Best was. Yeah. People like George Best wouldn't even be chosen, wouldn't be picked in today's modern sides. Why? Because possession is everything.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying, and I think also, but if we look back at the 70s, and if we look at the England sides, there were great individual players, but if we say about the way football was, and it's like, oh, it was great, there was more expression, I don't think there was. I think we look at it a little bit with rose-tinted spectacles.
No, I disagree with you.
I think that the players were great, but look at what they did with the England side. They didn't allow them to play.
But that was the England managers.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have had more flamboyant managers, more attacking-minded managers, and they didn't have them. But who knows?
But anyway, Man City, there you go.
Let's talk about this referee, David Coote, who's front page of The Sun today. Coke ref in bet probe. What's the story?
Well, we've seen the video a few weeks ago that came out when he was talking about Jurgen Klopp and he was talking about Liverpool. OK, you think that's the end of it? Oh, no, then there was the drugs thing, and which is the Coke ref there, that's in bet probe. So the bet bit now, this is like the 3, he's probably sitting there thinking, what next? The FA are investigating what they're calling very serious allegations, and they are, where what he'd done is discussed a yellow card that was later issued. So the Sun claims that the evidence...
He said to this guy, I hope you backed the booking as discussed.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say, because it was before Leeds versus West Brom in 2019. He was speaking to a chap on the phone who said, you know, would you bet Ezgian Alioski because, you know, he wanted to have a bet on him? Would you book him? So anyway, sure enough, during the game, now Alioski was booked by David Koo after 17 minutes, and then he sent a message back to his friend saying, I hope you backed it as discussed. Now, obviously, make your toes curl and think, how on earth could that happen? But when you look at the evidence of the booking, sure enough, yes, it was a booking. There's no evidence to say that he's made any money out of it, but it's just another
Doesn't
thing.
look good.
So how is he going to continue to be a referee? I have no idea.
Okay.
It really is not a good look for him.
Right, Mr. Paul, come back and speak to us again 7:20. Okay. For the
I
moment,
did get a
thank
lovely
you.
message yesterday saying, I don't like sport, but I do love that Paul Coit. Spelled
nice.
Q-U-R-I-Y-T-E.
What, like those hoops that you used to play? I'll take
but
it.
People say
I'll take
that
it.
to me. They stop me in the street and they say, I like
We
that
hate
Paul
sport.
Coit.
Yeah,
we like him.
It's usually women, to be honest, who are a bit like me. I'm not really into the footy, but I love you. You make it
We're all-
interesting. Anyway, welcome back is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I hope you love Norman Baker and Ian Paisley because they're here with the papers right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they've found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Chris is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you bother to do the maths, you know, because all it is maths and walking.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say, this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We've got Ian Paisley, we've got Norman Baker, and they've got the papers in front of them. And the big talking point, Norman, first of all, is this electric car situation and what's going on at Luton. Net zero plans seem to be in chaos after these sales targets for an electric car have been blamed for the closure of Vauxhall in Luton?
Well, the idea of setting targets is not a new one. It's been done successfully in California and places like that. However, you can drive manufacturers to produce cars. You can't force the public to buy them, and that's the essential issue. And then if the public aren't buying them, and we can go into that in a second, then the manufacturers are facing huge fines, and their response to that is to reduce the number of workers they've got. So there needs to be some drastic changes. The essential problem is that the electric cars are too expensive, and people can't afford to buy them. And secondly, people are concerned, sometimes without foundation, but concerned about the range. They're concerned about running out of power halfway up the motorway. Yeah. And that fear has to be overcome. It's not been overcome. So the government has to lead on that, and it's not done so successfully. What needs to happen now is you've got to back off these fines.
So there's 20 grand if you don't sell an electric car to a manufacturer. That's got to go.
They've got to go that. They've got to take that off. And they've got to also, in my view, if they want to produce this element of electric cars in the fleet, they've got to actually reduce the cost of the cars, maybe by a subsidy.
Ian, you like your cars and you like your motorbikes, and you're well into this. Could I ask you, do you have an electric car? Would you have anything against having an electric car?
Don't have anything against it, but don't have one. I think petrol is the language of anyone who's interested in petrol and motors. But the combustion engine is fantastic. What an invention. But look, this is the invention of the future. We need to get ahead of this. I do agree with Norman. I mean, setting unrealistic targets has clearly driven the market in reverse. What we should really be doing, I think, is putting our energies into electricisation of our public transport fleet. Buses, heavy goods vehicles, hydrogenising them or electrifying them.
So you're saying get that sorted first before you... Right.
Address that, and then the rest of the public will follow, because you'll put an infrastructure in place for the public transport network.
But I think what the government was sort of blindly hoping here was that consumers would pave the way for this, that these car companies would be able to reach these targets and they wouldn't have to fulfil their responsibilities. No. And now the question, if we are going to have these huge infrastructure changes, or, as you say, subsidies, where's the money going to come for that?
Well, indeed so. I mean, everything requires a subsidy and it requires public money. But, I mean, if they're going to get electric cars being sold, they're going to have to reduce the price of them. That's the reality.
The government gives the transport companies, that's the bus fleets, a subsidy to buy diesel fuel. Why not give them a subsidy to invest in electric vehicles?
Don't get me going on that, because that's something I tried to sort out when I was a minister 10 years ago, and actually said we should do it by mileage. The support for buses should be done by mileage, not by fuel. And they've taken 10 years to get nowhere on it, which is really irritating. I mean, we have got electric buses coming on stream. There is support for electric buses from the government. But the trouble is, they've also put the cost of bus fares up from £2 to £3. So they're actually taking away the market for those who want to use buses.
They need to increase their footprint on that. That's my view. And address this issue of electricisation or hydrogenisation of heavy goods vehicles, and then the public will follow.
Yeah, what we need to get some more freight on rail, actually, and that would actually deal with
a railway system.
No, well, we do over here.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Ian, do you think we've seen the last of her tax rises?
No, it's one of these things when a politician's lips are moving, they're probably not telling you the truth. And
it's on the record now. She said it.
Yeah, but this is going to come back and bite. Look, you can only have... This only works for Rachel if there's growth in the economy. And the only way there's growth is if you increase employment and increase productivity, more importantly. But whenever you put pressure on people, on the national insurance in particular, and you see employment either stopping or going down, growth will not go. So she's going to come up against a rock and a hard place, and she's either going to have to raise taxes again, or she's going to be found that this policy just does not work. And I see her deputy has indicated that, maybe she wasn't quite right on this.
Yeah, her business secretary.
Yes, Jonathan. Yes, I know. I mean, the government is at sixes and sevens, and I have to say they're unravelling at rated knots and burning up any goodwill they had. And I say that sadly, as a matter of fact, because I wanted them to do well, but they're not doing well. Look, I mean, it's foolish to say she won't raise taxes. There's 4.5 years of this government to go. I mean, who knows what will happen in the next 4.5 years? You can't say you're not going to raise taxes. This is a desperate kind of knee-jerk thing to try and deal with the criticism she'd have with the budget, and it's not professional.
If the budget had been better thought out, if there had been more announcements of consultations as opposed to we're going to tax the farmers or we're going to do over the old people.
Yes.
If they had have actually thought of that a little bit better, maybe we wouldn't be in this crisis.
Well, maybe there was no consultation on the farmers. DEFRA, the department which is responsible for farming, was told the day before what she was doing.
The Environment Secretary didn't know 48 hours.
Terrible, isn't it?
I was reading, though, that in the papers, the NFU have been making positive noises about their meeting with the Prime Minister that they might back down at some point. So, and I think even the Institute for Fiscal Studies yesterday suggesting that there could be a workaround where they didn't have to penalise these family farms.
Credibility.
Yeah,
that's what the farmers
of course,
are saying.
You're an economist in the Bank of England, you would know this, wouldn't you?
The government's saying there's they've made the position clear and there's not going to be any agreement.
No, I think it's every possible assistance short of actual help they're going to get.
Oh dear. Look, before we move on to another story, just time to tell you about our poll of the day today. We're asking, is it time to dump the green agenda after Vauxhall have blamed EVs for Luton's closure? I think they mean those tariffs, those quotas for EVs on that closure. We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day. Make sure you stay tuned for that. As always, the final result in Martin Daubney's show, and we'll have a little update after 9 o'clock as well.
The assisted dying bill is on Friday. We now hear in the Daily Telegraph that Boris Johnson, Theresa May, Liz Truss are all against the proposed legislation.
I'm really not surprised. I would have loved us for the last 7 weeks to be debating the need and the way in which we put resources into palliative care. Just imagine how much further forward this country would have been if we'd have had that discussion, and people would have seen value in life and in helping people through very, very difficult situations and nursing care and all the rest of it. I mean, this comes the day after with that wonderful story of John Tenniswood, the oldest man in Britain, nursed, looked after, and ended his life in glory, in a really, really positive way with his family. Now, I know that doesn't happen with everyone. I know there's real difficulties. I've been at the bedside of a loved one who died in really, really difficult circumstances. But people have meaning. And I'm pleased that all of our former Prime Ministers appear to be in the place. This is not.
Do you think this bill's going to be passed?
That's a really good question. I've been asking people in Parliament, and I don't know. I can't gauge the new Labour members. There's so many of them now, and I think it's going to be quite difficult. I just hope people think about this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that what's interesting is that the public seems to be very much on side of this, or at least if the YouGov poll earlier in the week is to believe, 2/3 of the British public. But then I heard as well over the weekend that the lawyer in the Harold Shipman case was worried that this legislation would pave the way to make it easier for murderous doctors to
years,
strike
Isabel,
again.
I was told that Parliament made really bad laws and don't interfere. And I've seen nothing that convinces me that we could make a law, that Parliament could make a law that would be perfect in this issue. And this is the time when it needs to be perfect. So I would just say, caution, this is not the right time, let's step back.
OK.
Ulster banner may be dropped from the Commonwealth Games. So is this the Ulster flag?
This is the Ulster flag.
Right.
Let sleeping dogs lie on this one. I mean, let's not make this any more controversial than this. When has symbolism been a problem in Ireland? This flag was invented in Dublin. This flag was the official symbol of the Northern Ireland government until it collapsed in 1973. It's used by Rory McIlroy, a young nationalist lad who's made good in Northern Ireland, has never complained about it. And suddenly the Commonwealth Games management have decided that they want something better.
So what would they want? They would want one flag to take in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland,
I think they want a Northern Ireland symbol. Because Wales obviously has the dragon, England has the St George's Cross, Scotland has the sceptre, so they want something else.
They want the red hand out of it then, do they?
Yeah, but you'll know. I mean, if you go to an Ulster rugby match, you go to GAA match, the red hand of Ulster's flown proudly by Ulster teams because it's the O'Neill hand. It symbolises the province.
Right, so you've got the Irish rugby team. They will stand to an anthem. I don't know if it's official on this Ireland's
song. Call, yeah.
Ireland's call. Oh, you
Ireland. Ireland.
Does that not make you feel patriotic and all green?
I just want to see them beating everyone.
They're doing that.
Yeah.
Is that not what they're looking for? Something that's more inclusive like that, and it's not the soldier song?
Yeah, well, this is not going to be an anthem that is sung. This is going to be a badge that is worn.
Yeah.
And I would say, let the sleeping dog lie here. Don't stir this up. This is going to cause more controversy than it's worth.
I'll tell you what's next. It will be, because the Northern Ireland teams would ever stand and salute the national anthem, right? I think it's moving towards getting something like Ireland's call to represent Northern Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to be easy, isn't it? That's going to go down well.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a whole
Good
other
luck
story.
defining that.
We have enough problems without digging into this one.
Goodness, it would just be an impasse for 5 years.
Yeah, and look at people who use the badge, you know, and use it proudly.
Guys, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. See you again in 45 minutes' time. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a weather update now. Here's your picture for today.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of two halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east, we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a largely dry picture, Godilla sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland. So most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note. But as a result, we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems, particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will start to see some clouds, some rain pushing in from the west-southwest, and here the winds are going to be picking up as well. Temperatures will be starting to pick up as we see something a bit milder coming in from the west, but for many it is going to be another chilly day.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Cumbria, the A6 is closed in both directions off junction 42 of the M6 south of Carlisle after an accident. The A1M in South Yorkshire is blocked each way for an investigation at junction 38 at Red House, northwest of Doncaster, causing long delays each way, especially on the northbound side. In London, the North Circular is closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow because of flooding. Diversions are via the roundabout with queues from Waterworks Corner. It's also down to a single lane eastbound. On the M20 in Kent, it's down to a single lane eastbound just after junction 10 south of Ashford after an accident. In West Sussex, the A23 is partly blocked northbound by an overturned vehicle between Hancross and the M23 at Pease Pottage. And also in West Sussex, the A283 is blocked westbound where a lorry is overturned off the A24 Washington roundabout.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. British business is going bust.
Carmaker Vauxhall announces the closure of its Luton factory, 1,000 jobs at risk.
That's just days after Ford also revealed plans to cut 800 positions, leaving many to ask if the enthusiasm for electric vehicles is waning.
The business blues don't end there. London's Smithfield Meat Market and Billingsgate Fish Market both set to shut up shop after 800 years.
A ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah begins, and a monumental turn of events in the Middle East. Is this the biggest win for Joe Biden's presidency yet?
Pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end.
Today is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. More than a third of older people say they're dreading the winter months ahead and will find it hard to manage without their winter fuel payment.
An interesting debate today. Is it time to ban WhatsApp in the workplace? It's emerged that the messaging service is being used as evidence in hundreds of employment tribunals. Stay tuned for that debate.
And in sport this morning, Manchester City have become the first team in Champions League history to be leading 3-0 after 75 minutes and not win. What's going on there? Arsenal demolished Sporting in Lisbon, and tonight huge games for Liverpool, Villa and Celtic are all at home.
Morning. It's a wet and blustery start across the southern parts this morning. Further north, there's some frost and fog around, and more of that to come through tonight. Join me later for more details.
Here we are, halfway through the week. It is a Wednesday. This is Breakfast at GB News. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. I was just pleased you remembered your name there. I was on edge.
Yeah, got there today. Vauxhall in Luton and the owners of Vauxhall have announced plans to close the company's van-making factory there, and that means 1,000 jobs are at risk.
And this comes just days after Ford announced plans to cut 800 jobs. The closure has been blamed on flagging electric vehicle sales and the financial penalties that's being imposed on manufacturers if electric vehicle sales make up less than 22% of the total. By 2030, the government want that to rise to 80%.
So that basically, if the manufacturers don't make those targets, a big fine goes on them, 20 grand or so, saying, boom. But who does that benefit? Is that the right thing to do? This decision has spurred the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, to review the electric vehicle proposals, promising fast-tracked change.
Well, let's get the thoughts of the political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal. I mean, just the optics of this is terrible. I think Nissan also have a big factory in Sunderland. They're warning that they might be the next ones in line. You know, for a Chancellor that's having day after day of terrible headlines, what on earth are they going to do to turn this around?
Well, they're really going to struggle. And, of course, you know, that's very much the Times splash this morning, talking about how this is part of a wider context. There was the comments by the President of the CBI, Rupert Soames, on Monday, saying that the Chancellor was milking business. Unfortunately, it seems there's going to be less business to milk because, you know, they've got all these car closures. And I think what we're seeing right now is, coming a week after COP29, we had all the talk around sort of sacrifice and sort of things we do. Actually, we're seeing the reality of market forces rubbing up against political reality. reality for this government, and it means job closures because, frankly, the consumer demand isn't there as much as ministers thought it would be.
James, I'm going to go around all of us now and just see what our view is towards an electric vehicle, but we should be in the market, we should be there in the forefront saying, let's do this. I am resistant because of financial implications. I think I would buy something at £60,000, which would be worth £20,000 next year.
I'm not someone that likes to spend money on vehicles. You know, it's got to be affordable. It's got to be cheap, frankly, to tempt me.
Paul?
Yeah, I love the idea of having an electric vehicle, but it's put me off in the past because then you think the price of when you're having to fill it up or when you use electricity wherever you go, if you go to there's the distance, so that also worries me as well. And also, like you say, the price is the main thing. And then people say, oh, yeah, but the battery, then if that goes, then you're really in trouble. It's almost like it's not ready yet.
Yes, because for paying for the battery, as you were saying there, Penny, it's a huge expense. And you talk about distance, and funny, it's to do with sport with me. If I was leaving London to go to Manchester to watch United, I would really be up against kick-off time. And say I needed to pull in somewhere and charge the vehicle. It takes 45 minutes or something like that. But you haven't got that time with football.
So how did the government turn this around? Is this about subsidies or is this about just giving up on their green agenda?
Well, I think it's going to be more likely to be subsidies because they've sunk so much political capital into the green agenda. They really believe it's the right thing to do. We've also got that 2030 target of getting rid of all petrol and diesel cars. And you wonder, of course, whether that's going to be delayed at some point further down the line. But right now, it seems, I mean, you have a fast-track review. That seems to be the response to this government to everything, is consult, because they don't want to take the pain of it. Frankly, I'm not sure there is a way out of this. And I also wonder, perhaps, if maybe kind of political support for these targets will be less if it's going to be Chinese cars benefiting from it rather than British manufacturers and British jobs.
But it's also a very bad day today, James, for jobs. We're talking about Billingsgate Market. We're talking about Smithfield Market there as well. Now, after 800 years of trading, all those jobs look in doubt as well. A completely different traditional market.
Yes, but I think that also you can argue feeds into a general pattern about the UK, one of which is, of course, the general narrative around gloom and doom. The other thing, of course, is a lot of these issues are sometimes related about planning, for instance. The reason why the land is so valuable on which Smithfields and Billingsgate Market is based is because of, haven't built enough houses, we haven't sorted out the system and supply. And so I think this is the issue that Rachel is going to keep butting up against. And for instance, when it comes to housing targets, which the government's planning to do, there's not enough around London and the South East, and they're being built elsewhere. So, as well as being a story...
My friend, they're not going to sit and make that into social housing. They'll be millionaire...
No, but I'm saying that there isn't enough generally. I agree with you. Of course, they're going to be... Someone will make a fortune out of this, which is why they can afford to have 300 million for compensation.
But, we're talking about business and all these woes, whether it be cars, whether it be markets and the optics of it. And then you have the business secretary coming out and contradicting the Chancellor yesterday, saying this is the end of the pain, we'll never have a budget like it, no more tax rises. And he's come out going, because he's realising there's no growth. How on earth are we going to pay for all of these things that we've pledged? He's a bit more realistic, but then he's the business secretary.
But of course, it's this classic thing about politicians, oh, trust me on this one, etc. And as you look at the last 4.5 years, where we had COVID, for instance, we're living in a world of increased global shocks, it's very silly to make these kind of pledges if you can't back them up. And I do think there'll be tax rises. Either that's going to be a stealth tax or it'll be something else down the line. I think it's a cross-party issue. And given the UK's anemic economic growth over the last couple of years, it seems likely that there will be tax rises at some point.
OK.
James, thank you. Thanks. Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Poll of the day, get involved in that. We'd like to hear what you think. And today the question is it time to get rid of a green agenda after Vauxhall blamed motor targets, electric vehicle targets, for the closure of their Luton factory?
We'll be bringing you those results, as always, throughout the day, with the final result in Martin Daubney's show. If you'd like to cast your vote, and for all our news and other interesting elements, go to our website, gbnews.com/poll.
I like interesting elements.
Yeah, I didn't know
it's
quite
always
what
nice
to
to have an interesting element.
Well, we've got a Black Friday deal as well on our GB News website for merch. Just saying, in case anyone wants to get
Wednesday,
Eamonn Christmas bauble, for example.
Yeah. Let's talk about this ceasefire. This is massive news overnight. Long-awaited agreement has been reached between Israel and Lebanese militia Hezbollah.
So it came into action around 2 o'clock this morning, and it will see Israel gradually withdraw its forces from southern Lebanon over the next 60 days.
America and France were responsible for brokering this deal, and here's what President Biden had to say when he announced it.
The deal reached today Effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
Well, following that announcement, Israeli strikes were reported in the northern Lebanon border. It saw 3 people killed.
Well, while the deal does not address the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip, President Emmanuel Macron hopes that it will be an open path to ending the war there in Palestine as well.
Let's go to our security editor, Mark White, with this one. He's right across the detail. When does it come into effect and how will it be sustained, Mark?
Well, it came into effect 5 hours ago, and so far so good. We're, of course, in the very early stages, but these are often the most delicate part of these ceasefires, ensuring that both sides abide by the ceasefire. You mentioned there some rocket fire that and missile fire that was reported into Beirut last night. Well, that was before that ceasefire came into effect. Since that happened at 2 o'clock UK time this morning, it's been all quiet. Smoke rising, yes, over Beirut this morning, but those are the results of strikes that took place, some very significant strikes that took place on the Lebanese capital, Beirut, last night, and parts of southern Lebanon as well. So the ceasefire is holding. The plan is that over 60 days we will see excuse me, the Israelis gradually withdrawing from southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah also withdrawing from those parts of southern Lebanon that it occupied to a position north of a river called the Litani River, which is about 20 miles from the Lebanon-Israeli border. They were supposed to, as part of a UN deal a number of years ago, be north of that river anyway, but they gradually moved down into the south. So the hope is that all sides can agree to this. It can be a lasting ceasefire that can hold, and some of the tens of thousands of Israelis and indeed Lebanese civilians who've been displaced because of this fighting can move back in to their homes again.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. We'll keep you posted on that news throughout the programme this morning as we get new developments on it. Some other stories coming into the newsroom.
7 people are still missing in the Red Sea after a diving boat carrying mostly tourists capsized off the coast of Egypt. 2 Britons are thought to be among those still missing. Yesterday, 5 people were rescued alive. Here's what one of the survivors had to say.
Appreciate it, and the reception on board,
yes,
with a warm shower, the dinner after, and all the care they took, because we were shaking with cold and shaking, and they won.
The tobacco and vapes bill has cleared its first hurdle in the House of Commons. A majority of 368 MPs voting to approve the bill at its second reading. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch was amongst the 47 MPs to vote against it.
Another storm, this one called Connell, is now on its way, bringing heavy rain to the south of England. That's as many regions are still trying to clear up from Storm Bert at the weekend. The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings for rainfall in several areas that continue into this afternoon.
Some news just coming into the newsroom this morning. The world record for balancing the amount of loo rolls on your head has been broken. Do you know what it stands at?
I reckon I could balance 3 or 4. Nothing.
Playing at it, nothing. The world record now stands at 152 loo rolls.
Oh, so I reckon what you do is you put one on your
Yes.
head and then like a plate on top of that, like a flat thing, and then you could stack them on top of that.
Well, it says they're balanced on a single roll, and it has to be for more than 30 seconds.
Oh. And where was this?
This is a man called Jay Rawlings, who also holds the official record for balancing lawnmowers, chairs, and even a chainsaw on his chin. That must be some chin. There you go.
Maybe I can have a go at that. Got a decent chin on me. Let us know if you've been breaking any records. I was going to say for loo roll today, but let's not go down. Anyway, you take it away.
Anyway, let's get the weather update. Let's see what this storm Connell's going to do. Alex Burkill.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of two halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east, we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a largely dry picture, good deal of sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland. So most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note. But as a result, we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems, particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will start to see some clouds, some rain pushing in from the west-southwest, and here the winds are going to be picking up as well. Temperatures will be starting to pick up as we see something a bit milder coming in from the west, but for many it is going to be another chilly day.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's time for what is deemed to be, well, it is our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway.
Yeah, it's £50,000. It's tax-free, and it could just be very welcome at this time of year, couldn't it? If you haven't entered the prize draw, make sure you do. Here are all the details.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Next, we're going to be talking about WhatsApp. WhatsApp's an app where you converse with each other, and it's supposed to be private, and you can't really hack it and all that sort of thing. But employment tribunals increasingly call upon what is in your WhatsApp app. So should that remain private, or should it be banned at work?
We'll be debating that after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, do you use WhatsApp at work? Perhaps you communicate with colleagues about what your plans are for a particular job, or you communicate with your closest colleague and perhaps sometimes talk about some of your colleagues.
So
who's ever done that?
Why is that a problem?
Well, because whenever there is any kind of sort of breakdown in relationships in a workplace, which happens a lot, tribunals come forward, those WhatsApp messages can be used as evidence. So as long as you're happy for all of those messages to be brought out, which could be to your detriment or not, then fine.
Let's hope they don't publish ours.
Or do you think it's just safer not to use WhatsApp at work at all? That's what the management here would say. That's what the management in a lot of companies are now saying. Apparently the use of them in tribunals have trebled since 2020.
How do you air grievances or gossip or...
There should be no grievances.
So you shouldn't communicate with work colleagues?
Well, and not unless you're prepared for it to be brought in a case. You know, it's a bit like when your rights are read to you. Anything you say may be used against you.
Taken down.
Yeah.
OK. Right, so NatWest have banned staff from creating group chats on WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. So we're asking the question now, should WhatsApp and similar messaging platforms be banned in the workplace? We're joined now by social media expert Alan Stevens and journalist Annette Kello. Confused? Am I the only one that's a bit confused on this, guys?
Well, hard to say, Eamonn. I don't know. I'm reasonably sound on this. I don't think it should be banned. It's a method of communication. I think the way it's used should be controlled, and you should get some very careful training about how you use it. In a regulatory environment, of course, there are issues with it, but we all remember the sorts of things can happen. Poor old Boris Johnson managed to lose 5,000 WhatsApp messages down the back of the settee.
Yes, and Rebecca Vardy sent hers out into the sea, didn't she, as well?
That's
for
right.
similar
So there are
reasons.
issues. There clearly are issues.
Well, let's get the thoughts of Annette Kello in all of this, because it seems to me WhatsApp is used in the workplace because it's useful, because you can communicate. I mean, I send WhatsApp messages to the team who are in there because our mics are live. We're on air all the time, and I need to say to them, have you seen this story? Can you rewrite that? I'm not thinking, am I going to be taken to court over this?
Well, but maybe you should.
Maybe I should.
Good morning. Now, I hope you're not going to be taken to court, because that wouldn't be good for the GB News viewers. But I do think there are certain elements with using WhatsApp at work that are problematic. For example, bullying, sex discrimination. And I also think if we think about, obviously you're talking about using yours for possibly work things, but other things can come out of that, like the employment tribunals. I also think on a slightly other end of the scale, if we look at the boss's side of things, they're getting a bit fed up because WhatsApp is highly addictive. You get a huge dopamine hit every time someone messages you. And I think that's part of the problem here is it's a whole conundrum of things tied into one that just make people unproductive. And I think that's another issue.
Well, what do you think about that then? Because, Alan, there is some truth in that it's actually stops people having any concentration, constantly being messaged by different people.
But they could use anything. They could use texting.
Yeah, just messaging at all.
So just messaging at all. So is this like just controlling what everybody's saying and being able to snoop into your life there, Alan?
I'm with you, Eamonn, as usual. It's I think it is absolutely. People have got to communicate in some way or other. I mean, it may be that you've got some kind of social group. It could be your daughter's football practice group, or I don't know, balancing loo rolls on your head interest group, or something. It could be anything, couldn't it? And that's not necessarily detracting from what you do at work. It's some method of communication you might use in your break, or you might use when you've got a bit of downtime. It's about the usage. It's not about banning something. It's about how you use it and how people are trained to use it and what they communicate on it.
But people
say I work with somebody, and I'm thinking about this, right? Say I work with somebody, Alan, and I'm communicating it with them via WhatsApp about something else. Let's just say the subject is football, right? So I do work with that person, but I'm talking to them and other people outside of work, not about work, but about football. Does that get me in trouble?
No, totally harmless. Totally
but if it's
harmless.
a work WhatsApp group, then...
there has been a case where somebody who was excluded from a work WhatsApp group actually claimed compensation from tribunals. So you have to be...
But also,
I know these things do happen.
if you have a work WhatsApp group, but you veer away from the topic of work because you've become friends with these people... And then you sort of become unguarded and perhaps discuss things on there, share jokes, send images. That is absolutely prime material for trouble, is it not, Annette?
Absolutely. And I also think as well, I'd be very worried if a brain surgeon was performing brain surgery and talking about the kids' WhatsApp football group while he was doing that. I think certain jobs, they shouldn't be using their phone and other elements. But I also think in workplaces, people do have to be careful that they're giving too much information away about themselves. I also think not just for tribunals necessarily, but just people gossip in workplace, people talk about things. And also, I don't know if people still go out for fag breaks these days. I don't know if they're a thing anymore.
They do.
Oh, do they? Well, maybe
they don't tell people that that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing.
Oh, really? Yeah. Maybe people need to go and have some WhatsApp breaks. But I know, for example, when I worked at a newspaper, I used to have to put my phone in that drawer because I would just be bombarded with WhatsApp messages all the time. And when they see you're online, more messages, and you get in this thing. So I would have to put it away. So whilst you say, yes, people just have to have personal responsibility and a moral compass, I also think some people, like myself, are a little bit addicted and need to just put it away.
Okay. Well, we'll put it away now, Annette. Thanks for airing that. Alan, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it'll get people talking today as to what's going on. Thank you very much indeed. Annette raised a very interesting point there, I think, about how sterile the work environment is, how you're not allowed to say this, say that. have a friendship with somebody, speak socially to somebody, that work is just sort of a real sterile
No wonder the young
environment.
don't want to go to work.
Yeah, fair point, yeah.
Right,
It's changed.
Coitie's coming in. He's the one you've been messaging about football, isn't it? Let's not pretend it's anyone else. He's going to be talking about all of last night's Champions League action, plus lots more. See you in a mo.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the A1M in South Yorkshire, there are northbound queues towards junction 38 at Red House to the northeast of Doncaster after an investigation. On the M56 in Cheshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed eastbound at junction 12 at Runcorn after an accident causing long delays. The M69 in Warwickshire is blocked southbound by an accident off junction 2 of the M6 near Coventry, causing queues. In London, the North Circular is closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow because of flooding. There are queues from the M11. On the M25 from Kent into Essex, it's down to 2 out of 4 lanes anti-clockwise, where the left-hand Dartford Tunnel is closed because of a breakdown. There are queues from junction 2 for the A2. On the M4 in Berkshire, the inside lane's closed eastbound at junction 4B for the M25 after a car overturned. The queues from junction 5 at Langley. And in Wiltshire, the A346 is closed south of Swindon after an accident. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here he is, Coitie.
Hello.
Hello, what have you got?
Champions League last night, Manchester City. I mean, my goodness.
Yes,
this dodgy run now, 6 on the trot, and I went to bed and Manchester City were 3-0 up against Feyenoord in the Champions League. I'm thinking, well, this is done and dusted. They're back again. Wake up this morning, Feyenoord score 3 goals in 14 minutes. The defence again, what is going on with Manchester City? It's a strange situation, and they've got Liverpool at the weekend, so who knows how that's going to go. Sporting Lisbon 1, or Sporting Club 1, Arsenal 5. Sporting haven't lost in 32 games.
Did Sporting not beat Arsenal, or not the City? Did they
Yeah. That was one of the first.
4-0
Sporting beat them. So Arsenal put 5 past them in Lisbon as well. So they were very impressive. So good result for them. Tonight, there's some brilliant games. Aston Villa are home to Juventus in the Champions League, so they've got to look better. Celtic playing against Bruges. How about this one? Liverpool versus Real Madrid tonight at Anfield. Real Madrid have got lots of injuries, and Liverpool looking very good. So you'd be a sensible person if you were thinking probably Liverpool will win this. But you never know in the Champions League. Got a few birthdays for you as well today.
Okay.
Let's go with the first one, shall we? We've got some sporting birthdays. First one is talking about Manchester City, Roberto Mancini. How old is he today? Very suave. Ooh, very cool.
66.
66 for Mancini.
I don't think he's that old. I'd say 60.
60 is the correct answer. 10 points to Mr. Holmes.
10 points? Favouritism?
Well, no, I'll give you 20 if you get the rest. It's a 10-point game. It's a 10-point game.
Right. Normally it's just the 1 point.
Well, I've changed the rules. I've been thinking about it. OK, I'm sorry. I'll give you a point. Now, this one, I don't know whether you'll be aware of this, Isabel, so I will help you if I can, unless you sort of argue about the points.
Not Coit for a second there.
Yes, no, it's not me involved in any trouble. Who's this? Now, who is that? Now, that is the 1976 League Cup final, Manchester City against Newcastle. And as kids, we were all saying it was the greatest goal we had ever seen. Dennis Stewart. Do you remember, Eamonn, the overhead kick against Newcastle?
Yeah.
So how old is Dennis Stewart? He played for Sunderland, Isabel, in 1973 in the cup final. So this is 76. Then he went on, played in the 81 cup final for Manchester City, played in America.
OK, 76.
76, OK, for Dennis Stewart.
I think that's quite good. I'd say 75.
20 points to me?
He's right again.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Honestly.
20-0.
Didn't deserve that.
You didn't.
And finally, a 40-pointer.
Oh, here we are.
A 40-pointer. Who is that?
Oh, I don't know.
She's American.
She is American. She's very American.
It's like a Yankee.
That is the ambassador to Australia. That is Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of John F. Kennedy. Let's see how most people would probably remember Caroline. Now, there she is. Now, do you know why I've put this in sporting birthdays? The answer is probably nobody has. Now, do you know the song Where It Began? Neil Diamond, Sweet Caroline, is about her.
Is it?
It is. He wrote that about Caroline Kennedy.
Wow.
So there's the link.
Every
Sporting
day's a
link.
school day.
There you go. So how old is Caroline Kennedy?
I'm going to go 62.
62. Eamonn, are you going to go for the triple Lindy? Are you going to get the 3?
70.
67 is the answer.
Oh, for goodness sake.
67 is the answer.
Right, OK.
Caroline
That's
Kennedy.
A hat-trick to you, Eamonn.
The inspiration of Sweet Caroline by Neil.
There's no justice in
I like that Sweet Caroline bit. We should have played that music.
I'll sing the whole Where It Began. I can begin to notice.
Anyway, we'd love to listen to you more, but we've got the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride. Have you got him now?
He's he
came in at the right point here.
Good morning.
Mel Stride, I thought we were going to
in the
break.
rain while we're doing that. I'm so
tapping
sorry.
his feet, singing along there to all of that. Mel Stride, very good to see you. Listen, we've got so much to talk to you about today. I suppose, first of all, those electric car vehicles and the job losses at Luton. Where are we going to be? Is Labour going to have to amend the penalties or the incentives for producers making electric cars since no one's buying them?
So, yes, I believe what the government has said, and good morning, Eamonn, is that they will stick to the actual reductions required year on year, but look at, and that's what they're doing at the moment, to look at relieving some of the scale of those penalties. And look, I think this goes right to the heart of getting the right balance there in these kind of situations. On the one hand, of course, as we were when we were in office, we were completely committed to getting on top of climate change and doing our bit for carbon reduction, but at the same time you do have to have a balance. And when you get a situation where clearly our domestic car industry is suffering to the degree that it is as a consequence of these measures, I think it's right that the government looks at this again.
And where do you think the failing is? Because obviously there isn't the consumer demand, but is that a responsibility of the government because they haven't, made the public confident that there are these, recharging facilities or, affordable access to electricity and all the rest of it? Whose fault is this in your view?
Well, there's a general reduction in demand for new cars generally anyway, but I think to your point, there is certainly a case that, particularly in urban centres, and if you don't have a driveway on which you can mount one of these charging points, it is something that makes it more difficult to own an electric vehicle. But certainly we had plans when we were in government to roll out many thousands of additional charging points up and down the country, and that obviously is now for this government to explain how it is going to tackle that particular issue. But to the substantive point, I think it's right that we look at these things and we seek balance, and clearly these car manufacturers are really struggling with this, and so therefore I think it's probably right that the government has a second look at it.
So therefore you could, broadly speaking, probably support them or be in favour of any measures they would have. For instance, if a car manufacturer is fined £20,000 for not selling an electric vehicle, you could have a bit of tolerance on that if they were to reduce it.
Yes, quite possibly. I mean, of course, one of the things we did, Eamonn, was that we pushed out the date at which there had to be 100% switch from to electric vehicle production from 2030 to 35, and this government actually brought it forward again to 2030, which of course is part of the reason that there's additional pressure. So I don't think we're in entire alignment, and we would want to see what it is this government is proposing. But I think it's right that it gets looked at given what's happening.
Can I ask you about Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor? She's had a rough few weeks, I think it's fair to say. First of all, she upset pensioners, then she made some pretty shocking announcements in her budget. She's upset the CBI, big business. We've had the news of these job losses. And now her own business secretary seems to be contradicting her just 24 hours after she boxed herself in again at the CBI by saying there won't be any tax raises. Is this just political naivety, do you think? Or is this, as they would say, just simply because they've inherited such an awful situation from you?
Well, look, the awful situation from us, this so-called £22 billion black hole is being comprehensively debunked by the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, so I don't think we should give that much credence. But look, what this government did was it went into a general election reassuring the electorate it was not going to be putting up taxes left, right and centre. It then got elected and promptly proceeded with the plan that it always had, which was a huge spending splurge with a huge eye-watering increase in taxes, particularly on businesses and jobs through national insurance. And what that's doing, of course, is hitting growth, which is the very thing that this government says it's completely committed to. And I think it was probably foolhardy of the Chancellor to have said to the CBI there will be no more tax rises in the future, because I am fearful that for a variety of factors, not least some of the pressures we might get from Donald Trump and tariffs in the White House and various other things that might make the public finances very difficult in a year to 18 months' time. And she has once again boxed herself in. But let's see what happens.
Well, let's see what happens on this next story. This is one that always confuses me and pulls me apart here. And this is the Mirror have a headline: Dawn of a New Era, Labour's Big Breakfast Plan. Now, in 1 hour's time, Mel, we have Stephen Morgan. He's the schools minister, and we're gonna have him on, and this is his idea, and we're going to be talking about this. But this is about free breakfast clubs for school children. Free breakfast clubs will be available at all primary schools as part of Labour's bid to stop kids struggling to learn on empty stomachs. So we get to this stage. I'd just like to know where you stand on this. I've always been torn. Is it the parents' responsibility? I mean, I'm from a working class family, 5 boys. We always went to school with a breakfast. I never questioned how my parents did it, but we never went without cornflakes or toast or boiled egg or whatever it happened to be. Are things really that bad that we have to provide free breakfasts for every youngster in the country?
Well, sadly, I mean, the way that you get out of a situation where you have that in the first place is through growing the economy and growing people's living standards. And what all the forecasting shows around this budget, which is going to damage growth, going to increase unemployment, going to depress wages, is that real household disposable income, which is what the economists call it, is going to be pretty flat right across this period. And that is the root of the problem. And what Labour have actually got to start thinking about and telling us how they're going to deliver is real growth, so that people are earning more, so employment remains high, so that unemployment remains low, rather than going in the opposite direction, because that is going to make those kind of pressures that you've just raised all the more difficult.
I want to ask you about your particular interest and area of these big reforms by the government to try and get people back to work. 240 million investment, particularly focused at the young, those that have got mental health issues as well. Your quote in the paper is saying that this has all gone too far, this focus on mental health. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm not sure which quote you're referring to there, because I recognise that there are many people, very sadly, who have very severe mental health conditions, and that needs treatment. That's why when we were in government, we rolled out, for example, about 400,000 additional talking therapies in the NHS to address those kind of issues. But I think it's equally the case that some people with milder mental health challenges will actually find work helpful for their recovery. Work is good for you. It's a routine. It's that sense of being as part of a team and purpose, and the conversations you have at the water cooler at work are really an important ingredient in recovery. So I think that's the point that I was making. But as to the welfare reforms that have been put forward yesterday by the government, they really don't amount to much, unfortunately. A number of the announcements are actually things that we were already doing when we were in government, but perhaps rebadging them and saying they'll do them in a slightly different way. Other things are frankly gimmicky, bringing together the National Careers Service and job centres as if that's going to solve all the problems overnight. And really what they're saying is they're kicking it into the long grass. They're going to come back to us with another review and a white paper next year, having failed to grasp the nettle now. And the cost of this is enormous. We went into the last elections with £12 billion worth of saving. That could have spared a lot of those businesses, a lot of those tax increases.
Yeah, well,
Chancellor, we've got to leave it there. The clock has beaten us. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. All the best.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's go because the clock is against us. Ian Paisley, Norman Baker will be here in a moment to review the newspapers. See you then.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is The Guardian. They've announced they will no longer post content on Elon Musk's social media platform X, or as it's still known by everybody, Twitter. So they made an announcement to readers. I don't know why they have to announce it. It's like they'd announced they're leaving a party. And why? Oh, I'm leaving the party because there's pineapple in the potato salad and the sangria's warm. I don't know, like, just go. But they said they considered the benefits of being on the platform were now outweighed by the negatives, citing the often disturbing content and misinformation found on it. But there's going to be a bit less now because The Guardian's not going to be on it. Some of the far-right conspiracy theories that they talk about are now just like 50% of the time they come true. Look at Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That was a far-right conspiracy theory, and then it came true.
They linked to a Zoe Williams article. It was a hyperlink from that exact phrase, far-right conspiracy theories, which you've written a whole article about how dangerous X was now, what a slimy pit of disinformation. And one of the examples she gave was the far-right conspiracy theory that Algerian boxer was actually intersex, which is absolutely... And it was like, she was like, sued, Elon Musk was named in the libel trial.
If you're really bothered about what X is like, spend more time tweeting back, disagreeing with people, get stuck into the argument.
They could appoint a specific ex-correspondent, couldn't they? They don't have to have the whole newspaper there. It could just be their champion.
The Guardian were worried about misinformation that influences elections. They should have left in 2020 when Twitter, under its previous owners, colluded with the Democrat governments, colluded with executive branches of the government to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was classed as fake news. It was actually completely valid and true. And if they want to change people's minds and, make everybody better and more socialist, surely the people like me who are on Twitter are the ones they need to convince. So stay on Twitter and convince me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, we're going through the papers of the former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker and the former DUP MP for North Antrim, Ian Paisley Jr. We've got the big guns in today. Can we start, Ian, with this big news overnight? This ceasefire kicking into action in these small hours this morning.
Yeah.
We've got live pictures this morning of people returning into southern Lebanon, which there have been a huge number of refugees that had to move out of the area. Bring us up to date on the latest lines and all of this.
Well, obviously the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided that he wants to have a peace deal as quickly as possible in the Lebanon. That's great for the region. Let's make no mistake about it. It also, I suppose, liberates his army and the activists and the Israeli Defence Forces to get on with what they were doing originally, which was to sort out the issues in Gaza and the atrocious attack that Israel suffered in October of last year. And I think that's very important. But look, stability in Lebanon is key. If we can get stability in that part of the country, we can get a presidential election. We can try and get some stability into that region, and that can't be a bad thing. But this is a very, very fragile and fractured part of the world, and I fear that it's only going to be for a short period of time.
Isn't it strange how the change of presidency seems to have expedited this? Is this about President Biden trying to walk away from his, embarrassment at the polls last month, having achieved something, and also making sure that Trump can't claim any victory in all of this himself?
Trump is claiming, in fact, that his arrival in the near future is the reason why this has been negotiated. But look, I mean, let's not think that Netanyahu has suddenly become a peacenik. He hasn't. The reason he's agreed to the ceasefire is he sets it out himself in his own words in the Telegraph today. First, just so he can focus on the Iranian threat. What does that mean? Suggests more military action somewhere else. Second, as Ian says, it's about enabling his soldiers to concentrate on Hamas
and Lebanon
in Gaza.
At this time have said that, previously they were saying that they wanted a ceasefire in Gaza to be part of this.
Yes, that's right.
They're no longer saying that. So the suffering of the Lebanese people, they're recognising that they need this and they need it.
But is there any chance, do you think this could be a catalyst to some sort of deal in Gaza, or do you think this will see a doubling down of the IDF in northern?
No, I think it's going to be more activity in Gaza. There'll be activity against Iran. And let's also remember, in terms of domestic opinion in Israel, that Netanyahu is in court next week on corruption charges, which the Supreme Court has refused to take away.
People say it's in his interest to keep the war going. His own personal...
It is in his interest to keep the war going, because as long as the war's going, he got support from the Israeli public for the actions to defend Israel, as they see it. And as soon as the war finishes, they'll return to the concentration on his corruption charges.
I don't get the President Biden interference in it, though. This is a man who a few days ago authorised the use of weapons in another war zone, and yet now is welcoming peace in this one. I just don't get the
Biden's got no influence on this. I mean, the Israeli government's paying no attention to Biden. Whatever they do is what they want to do, not what Biden says.
Yeah, okay.
Let's know what we're going to talk about. Ofwat, Norman. Ofwat. So they say there is a reason why so many people are disappointed in the water firms, not because of what they're doing, but because we're all talking about it.
Yes, this is incredible. This is the head of Ofwat, who was giving evidence to MPs yesterday, David Black, who said that public criticism of water companies was making it harder to attract investment. The implication being, never mind all this sewage being dumped in the rivers and everything else, we should all shut up and just get on with it so that we keep Stum and the water companies can get some more investment. And of course, we've seen record levels of pollution in our streams and our rivers off our coasts, highest levels in 9 years in terms of poor quality swim spots. And of course, Ofwat is a body which has allowed the water companies to pay huge dividends to its shareholders instead of investing in the water companies. Ofwat needs to be removed. As far as I'm concerned, it should be sod Ofwat.
I was in Somerset the weekend and I went for a walk along the River Frome. I didn't realise that until pretty recently, recent history, they had wild salmon swimming in from the Atlantic into the River Frome. And they're all but disappearing and not returning to breed.
You wouldn't fish there.
So sad.
You wouldn't fish there, and you wouldn't eat what you caught.
I know.
Do you fish?
I used to love fishing, as a kind of pastime. I was taught to fish up in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland by my old man when we were kids on holiday.
But we've all got stories to tell about water pollution. I mean, our own case in Northern Ireland, Loch Ness, is absolutely disgusting what's been allowed to happen
and
there.
The biggest polluter in that inland water system is actually the water systems itself, or the government agency.
Farmers get a lot of the blame. I want to bring you to this story in the Daily Mail. Is the Prime Minister a friend of farmers or not?
Well, if my name was Pierre or Andre and I was a farmer, I don't think the Prime Minister would be having a discussion with the farmers. I think they'd be out on the streets, and within a week of protest, the government would be begging them to get round the table. If the protest went on for 2 weeks, it'd be a general election. But of course, the farmers have had a private conversation, or the farm leaders have had a private conversation with the Prime Minister, and maybe he's getting ready for a U-turn. This farm thing has gone down
but they've announced from Downing Street they're sticking to the inheritance tax. Everything's staying the same. The farmers are coming out with something different.
Do not underestimate how ruthless Keir Starmer has to be, and if this means stabbing Rachel in the back, he will do it. And this will be number 10 versus number 11. The Treasury went too far on this one. That's the bottom line. Well, the Treasury didn't consult, and they've thrown this out, and farmers are rebelling.
And it's funny, isn't it, how the Institute for Fiscal Studies has become like the arbiter of truth, because, you know, they criticise everybody in equal measure, and they've kind of come up with a tinkering workaround that could be palatable to farmers, you know, and maybe the government will listen to them if nobody else.
Maybe they will. But look, this is another example of a calamitous government decision, and Ian's right, there was no proper consultation. No consultation with DEFRA, with the Environment Minister, the day before the budget. And it's the arrogance of Treasury officials, which runs through every government, by the way, and they tell their ministers, you are the most important ministers in government, pay no attention to the other departments. I saw it when I was a minister at the Home Office and Department for Transport, Treasury riding roughshod over other departments, not consulting properly. But look, I mean, the government is raising pitiful amounts of money through this particular scheme and causing a huge amount of political damage to themselves. It's very bad politics as much as anything else.
Absolutely. It's hard to disagree with that. Should we talk about chatbots taking over our shopping chores? This is in the Times, Norman.
It is, and I sort of despair chatbots taking over our shopping chores.
What is chatbot? Yeah, I don't understand.
This is chat GTP, you know, whatever it's called, chat GPT, changing the way we shop. And a quarter of Britons are now using AI, artificial intelligence, while shopping online, and it's expected to rise this Christmas. And the Times, which is a story, is in the Times, asked chat GPT what it recommended for an 80th birthday present, and ChatGPT recommended ideas including custom jewellery, a video tribute, artwork, and a memory book, a type of scrapbook. Well, you know, people can't people make up their own minds what they want to buy their relatives without having to get some help?
We're incapable of using our brains anymore, Norman.
Just to get a Christmas present.
Oh, here we go. Get the violin out. Come on.
It's got more than 100 million active users every month, ChatGPT. 100 million.
Have you ever used it?
No.
Have you ever used it?
Yes,
it's quite frightening, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Well, what do you say it's brilliant? What does it do?
Well, look, you use spell check on your computer.
Yeah.
It's the next degree of that, where you say you write a letter and you run it through this and say, professionalise this. Make me sound like an accountant from the Bank of England or something like that. Within seconds, you have.
I mean, sometimes it's not as good as it. So it might professionalise it, and then you have to go back and humanise it. It's not quite perfect, but it is interesting.
It's taken human ingenuity and creativity out of life.
Yes.
It's terrible.
Yes, I agree, but I do think you can spot it. I do think you can spot it. You can tell the difference. Smithfield and, the fish market, Billingsgate Fish Market, both getting the chop, 850 years old.
We've only got a minute.
Only a minute, Ian, on this one.
Yeah, well, you know, I think this is one of these things that's going to be missed after it's gone. We're going to go to the good old days. Remember that was there? Remember the market was there? And I think people are going to say that. No, it's a sign of the times, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, is this because we don't eat fresh produce anymore? Or is this because the land value of these markets is so high that the pressure to move them out is increasing?
They'll put a supermarket there, they'll put something.
Oh, they'll put multi-million pound flats. Yeah, the Billingsgate Fish Market's got a great little location in the city of London. No one will live in them. It'll be foreign owners.
It's a land value. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Covent Garden being the fruit market, which was delightful. And now it's something
and then the flower market as well.
Guys, got to say goodbye to you and see you in 40 minutes' time once again. Let's go to the break.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound after an accident between junctions 35 and 35A from Rotherham to Stocksbridge, causing delays. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, there are southbound queues from junction 12, the Toddington and Flitwick turn, past 11A for the A5 north of Dunstable, after traffic was stopped because of a breakdown. In London, the North Circular is closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow because of flooding. There are queues from Redbridge. It's also down to a single lane eastbound, causing queues from the 4th Street Tunnel at Edmonton. On the M25 in Kent, it's down to 2 out of 4 lanes anti-clockwise, where the left-hand Dartford Tunnel is closed because of a breakdown. There are queues from junction 2 for the A2. On the M25 in Surrey, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed anti-clockwise, where there's an accident just after junction 9 at Leatherhead, causing queues. And in Wiltshire, the A346 is closed south of Swindon after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Imagine
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. British business is going bust.
Car makers Vauxhall have announced the closure of their Luton factory, putting more than 1,000 jobs at risk.
Just days after Ford also revealed plans to cut 800 positions, leaving many people to ask if the enthusiasm for electric vehicles is on the fall.
And the business blues don't end there. London's Smithfield Meat Market and the Billingsgate Fish Market are both set to shut up shop after 800 years.
A monumental turn of events in the Middle East. A ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah begins. Is this the biggest win in Joe Biden's presidency?
Pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end.
On this Fuel Poverty Awareness Day, more than a third of older people say they're dreading the winter months and will find it hard to manage without the winter fuel payment.
And in the sport this morning, the strange Manchester City wobble continues as they throw away a 3-0 lead at home to Feyenoord to draw 3-3. Different story for Arsenal. They score 5 away in Lisbon, and more trouble for referee David Coote.
Morning. It's a wet and blustery start across the southern parts this morning. Further north, there's some frost and fog around, and more of that to come through tonight. Join me later for more details.
Hello there, very good morning to you. You're tuned in to GB News. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
Vauxhall has announced plans to close the company's van-making factory in Luton, putting over 1,000 jobs at risk.
And that comes just days after Ford announced plans to cut 800 jobs. And Nissan, that has a huge factory in Sunderland, also very concerned.
Well, this closure has been blamed on falling electric vehicle sales and the financial penalties imposed on car makers if EV sales make up less than 22% of what they're actually selling. By 2030, that will rise to 80% of all sales.
Well, the decision has spurred the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, to review the electric vehicle mandate, promising that it will be fast-tracked change.
Joining us now, GB News reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, you're at the Vauxhall factory in Luton. Mood must be pretty poor there.
Yeah, we've just arrived today, this morning, guys, and we're hoping to speak to as many people as possible throughout the morning, throughout the day, and we'll bring you that coverage when we have it. Already we're hearing reports that people in this factory were hearing this news via WhatsApp, and they weren't finding it on the news. They weren't even told internally. It was public before they even knew about it. So, of course, people are going to be very upset. And as you said, it's all to do with the electrical vehicle mandate. 22% of cars have to be electric every year sold, and that will rise to 100% by 2030. And the question is that sustainable? Any car that's sold outside of that mandate, the owner is whacked, or the car manufacturer is whacked with a £15,000 fine. So it's incredibly punitive. And as I say, is that doable in this time frame? The Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, said last night, as you say, there's going to be a consultation, and he's incredibly concerned about this. You can't decarbonise and deindustrialise at the same time. That's the argument. But people here will be saying, well, look, that appears to be what's happening. Over 1,000 jobs at risk. And not just here, but with Ford as well, like you say, and there will be others. So the question remains, is this sustainable?
I suppose the question is also any changes that the government brings in, whether they water down these quotas or whether indeed they perhaps introduce subsidies, although goodness knows how they would fund that. Will it be too late for the likes of Vauxhall? You know, is this is curtains really for those jobs?
Yeah, well, exactly, that's the question. Downing Street spokesman said last night they are committed to this. There may be some tinkering, but fundamentally the course is set and they're not changing from it. And the argument is that certainty is what businesses need, and they can make their plans. Well, fine, but those plans involve lots of redundancies potentially at this point, so it's small beer for the people here and in other car manufacturing plants across the country. Like I said, people are finding out online, and some of these people are in their 50s, you know, they're towards the end of their career. It's going to be very hard for them to reskill or find new jobs, so it's a serious concern for them, regardless of the benefits to the environment potentially in pursuit of these net zero goals.
Okay. Adam, thank you very much indeed. So a bleak looking and a bleak feeling Luton this morning on that one. Let's now go to Charlie Peters, because there's another big
upset, I suppose is the word.
Yeah. This time it's to do with the meat market, the fish market. We go to the meat market at Smithfield, and there's Charlie Peters for us this morning to tell us more. Charlie.
Well, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, well, after almost a millennium of meat trading here at Smithfield Market, yesterday the City of London Corporation voted to close this operation by 2028. It is a major moment of heritage changing hands. We anticipate that this location will now become a mixed-use cultural development. The City of London, of course, has several of those. The Barbican's just a walk up the road for a major cultural site, but there aren't very many medieval markets left in this town, especially in the City of London. This is what we've got. But earlier I spoke to Chris Hayward, who's the policy chair of the city, who explained why he was getting involved and this decision had been made.
Well, it's also not just about cost, it's about the changing, it's a sign of the changing times, to be honest with you, because meat distribution is being handled in different ways. We've seen that actually the levels of meat going through this market substantially reduce as people eat less and less meat. But the good news is that these traders, the vast majority of them, will be relocating elsewhere in London. So from the food supply chain point of view, food will still be easily accessible. So yes, I've got a tinge of sadness mixed with an ounce of realism, mixed with the reality that, frankly, the cost of repairing these ancient markets and bringing them back up to speed just was beyond our capabilities.
Well, I'm joined now by a trader who says he's been working here for 10 years or 20 years. He can't quite remember how long has he working here, but you're sad about this decision, sir, yes?
Yeah. I really miss. I'm really going to miss it when it goes. It's going to go in 2028?
Yes, that's what they're saying.
Yeah. I'm going to be sad. I've been here for a long time, since uni days, since teenager. So I'm going to be very sad.
Well, at the same time, I've also heard from traders this morning, sir, saying that this place needs to adapt. They need to get ready for the changing market, a changing expectation of what this place should be, right in the city of London. Some people are saying that there's a Smithfield mentality. People feel entitled to be here. But you think that that's a sad change and a sad move?
It's been here for a long time, 800 years, so it's historical as well. Yeah. It'll be a big shame when it goes because it's a lot of history. You know, a lot of people, a lot of generations have been here, and a lot of generations have been trading. Like my friend, Ahad Halal, shout out Ahad Halal, he's been trading for a long time, his dad, and even his dad, so it's a generational thing. So when it does move, obviously we'll still be trading, hopefully, but it will be sad to see it go.
Right, sir, thank you very much. Sad to see it go for some. Go on then, treat me. Good lad. It'll be sad for some to have that change, as you've just heard, but I've also been speaking to tradesmen at the market throughout the morning who've said, well, we're not special. We have no right to be here. This is a moment of London's heritage, but we've got to adapt and realise that there are different expectations for this land. And it's not just Smithfield, it's also the Billingsgate fish market down the road. So mixed messages at the moment from many of these tradesmen, accepting that 1,000 years of history is coming to an end, but really understanding why that's happening. I should say very quickly also, we had that interview with Chris Hayward we played out earlier. Last night he was saying that one of the changes that's forcing this move is that people are eating less meat and fish. There's not as much of a demand for these markets to exist. And that comes on the back, of course, of the farmers' row that we've had in Westminster. Lots of people worrying about Britain's food security. Well, if there's one thing that the meat traders have told me this morning is that they don't buy that argument. They think that the demand for meat is just as high. And they said, come here any morning, as we have done today, and you'll see that demand.
Yeah, just really quickly, Charlie, because I know they've also shelved the plan to move the two combined markets to a separate site out in Dagenham, which is a sign of the times in itself as well. You know, there was a sort of, you know, let's relocate, let's keep these thriving, let's honour the tradition, but also keep the fresh produce. They're not bothering anymore.
Yeah, well, one tradesman told me no more than about 10 minutes ago that he never thought that the Dagenham plan was going to go ahead, that proposed relocation, that it was dragging on for too long and the money didn't quite make sense, and it was potentially just dangled there as a possibility to keep some hopes alive, but they were unconvinced that was ever going to really be achieved. Fundamentally, Dagenham, not all roads lead there, but all roads lead to the City of London, so many didn't think it was the ideal site for those fish and meat markets to head to. Instead, the City of London is proposing some form of compensation for traders, running into the hundreds of millions as they relocate for 2028. So we'll see how that takes place. But again, another tradesman telling me this morning that there is that Smithfield mentality. People do feel that they're special, that they work here. They said that there's good pay for working here as well. So compensation or not, it's going to be a kick in the teeth for many of the tradesmen as they find a different place to be. And fundamentally, if you are in the meat and fish trade, working in an iconic market like Billingsgate, like Smithfield, hey, it's a good reason to get up in the morning knowing that you're going to be working in the history of 1,000 years of tradesmen who did the same just as you.
I always like the fact that they're also up at the same time as us. I presented from Billingsgate Fish Market once. I chased Boris Johnson around it, trying to talk to him during the Brexit referendum campaign. He was, you know, really getting involved with the traders there who he wanted to vote for Brexit. But there is this sense that there's this sort of nighttime community up with the larks, like us. I think it's really sad that we're going to see all of that finishing. Charlie, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, I don't agree with that business either, that, you know, meat consumption's on the decline. Not locally, it's not. It may be internationally or whatever, but you should see the size of meat farms in Argentina and in Brazil, for instance, South America. Unbelievable. Like, you just couldn't even imagine what they're like. But they've put their future into meat.
But, you know, we know the farmers are having a rough time. We know the farmers are worried about where they're going to sell their produce, you know, the pressures on the farms, the weather, all the rest of it. It's just the way we consume food is all changing. Let us know your reaction to this story, gbnews.com/your say.
Let's talk about the ceasefire agreement now, which has been reached between Israel and Hezbollah. It started early this morning. It will see Israel gradually withdraw from southern Lebanon over the next 60 days.
Yep, the US and France were responsible for brokering this deal. Let's have a listen to President Biden as he made that historic announcement.
The deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
Well, we should say after that announcement was made, Israeli strikes reported immediately along the northern Lebanese border. 3 people dead, we understand.
Well, whilst the deal does not address the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip, President Emmanuel Macron hopes that it will be an open path to end the war in Palestine.
Let's go to former Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown for his take on all of this.
No, I think that's Hamish de Bretton Gordon, who used to be very high up in NATO. Good morning to you. Listen, can we just talk about how we've got here 3 months on from those huge walkie-talkie attacks, 3,700 Lebanese dead, 140 Israelis. What do you think has brought about this peace deal at the 11th hour?
Well, good morning. Delighted to be suggested that I was a senior police officer. But yeah, I think this is really good news. We've only heard bad news thus far with the conflict. As you said, the Israelis significantly denuded Hezbollah in the attacks on the mobile phones and also the pagers some months ago, and excuse me, and have been writing them down significantly. So I think everybody applauds this, and the chance for people to go back to their homes in Lebanon that we're hearing, and also for the Israelis to go back to their northern border, must only be a good thing. And as you suggested, let's hope this also leads to some sort of peace deal in Gaza as well, because anything that reduces the pressures in the Middle East for it to explode have got to be applauded. And I think this is, the first bit of good news that we've had. We know that the Iranians, of course, are behind this, and Iran is also having a huge impact on the war in Europe. And now that the US and the French have managed to broker this ceasefire, hopefully the US and the French and ourselves will be able to focus all our efforts on doing something similar in Ukraine, some sort of ceasefire and peace deal there.
Is that all wishful thinking, though? I mean, already Benjamin Netanyahu has come out saying that they're going to refocus their energy on the Iran threat. It doesn't seem as though they're going to necessarily get any closer to a peace deal in Gaza. Perhaps they're just going to be doubling down there. And also, I wonder whether you think that President Biden is perhaps on a bit of an ego trip here, trying to erase his disastrous Afghanistan legacy by trying to claim this as in some way his work.
Well, absolutely, and that's a really good point. Obviously, President Biden is now unfettered by trying to protect his political future, as many leaders around the world are doing at the moment, and that is hindering them from making demonstrative moves. So Biden, in the last few weeks in office, we've seen him, up aid to Ukraine, and obviously working very hard on this to try and get some sort of legacy. Because, certainly the hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan was an absolute disaster, and we're still feeling the ramifications of that now. And, of course, anything that happens in the Middle East, particularly where Iran is involved, can create global turmoil as well. But yeah, I mean, we mustn't, I think, expect that this is all over by any means. And certainly, Netanyahu's comments on Iran, it might seem rather difficult for us to understand it here, but, in effect, the Israelis and the Iranians have been at war for years and years, and both would like to see, the end of those states. And I think, I'm sure the Israelis think for their long-term security, they must ensure that Iran cannot fuel its proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas, and cannot use its long-range missiles to attack Israel. So there is a bigger piece to this, but it is a start, and I think it's to be applauded, and hopefully supported. And in the hope that Hamas may also be drawn into a ceasefire, and as I said at the beginning, hopefully give focus for what is far more important, I suppose, to the security of this country, of what's happening in Ukraine and Europe at the moment.
Hey, Mr. Bretton Gordon, thank you very much indeed for your take. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you. Well, let's get the weather update now. Alex Burkill with the picture.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of two halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a largely dry picture, Godilla sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland. So most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note. But as a result, we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost, and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems, particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will start to see some clouds, some rain pushing in from the west-southwest, and here the winds are going to be picking up as well. Temperatures will be starting to pick up as we see something a bit milder coming in from the west, but for many it is going to be another chilly day.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it is time for our biggest and our greatest Great British giveaway, and it's your chance to win £50,000. As you know, all our giveaways are tax-free cash.
Indeed. Enjoy if you win.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British
We go from an amazing piece of good fortune, if you were to win that, to today, which is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day.
And that's very apt, given the cuts to the winter fuel payments for so many pensioners. We'll be discussing that after this.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kisker, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%. Whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school, they should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
As we were saying earlier, today is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day, and if you can't pay your fuel bill, you won't need to be told that. No better time to bring attention to the thousands of pensioners who are dreading the whole winter because the government cut the winter fuel payments.
Well, the end-of-life charity Marie Curie has done their own research on this, and they're warning that 44,000 terminally ill pensioners could lose out on their winter fuel payments.
Well, here with the details is Head of Public Affairs at Marie Curie. We say good morning to Toby North. This seems a very sorry picture we're painting here, Toby.
Good morning, absolutely. Today is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day, and at Marie Curie we want to highlight the thousands of people with a terminal illness approaching the end of lives who may be struggling with the cost of their energy bills. We're sharing shocking new figures that 44,000 terminally ill pensioners will lose their winter fuel allowance under the new rules that the government has brought in. These are people for whom it may be their last Christmas, and that £300 winter fuel allowance could have provided a lifeline to allow them to live comfortably at home.
I mean, if I was interviewing a politician here, I'm sure they would say help is available. I mean, your problem is, I suppose, the fact that 44,000, which is a lot of people, terminally ill people, have got to go looking for that, have got to sort that out in amongst the troubles that they're going through anyway.
Absolutely. The last months, weeks and days of someone's life should be able to spend doing the things that are really important, like making memories with loved ones and living well for as long as they are able to. It shouldn't be a time when people are forced to worry about whether they can afford to stick the heating on, frankly.
It's shocking when the Department for Work and Pensions' own modelling has admitted that 100,000 pensioners will be pushed into relative poverty as a result of their own policy. Just explain to us why you think 44,000 of these terminally ill pensioners actually need to use their fuel more than, say, any other pensioner, because they've got unique needs, haven't they, in this end-of-life period?
Absolutely, and because of someone's terminal diagnosis, they may need to be at home more. They may need to be warmer. They may need to have their heating on for longer hours, but they may also have essential medical devices that they need to power at home. And we know that the NHS only will provide funding for some very small number of medical devices, and they often will only provide that payment in 3 months in arrears. So we know it's a huge challenge. And we hear from Marie Curie nurses who are going into people's homes, providing them with vital care at the end of the life, through the day and night, and they're going into cold and damp homes, and they're supporting people who they're afraid to switch an oxygen machine on because they're afraid of what the cost will be at the end of the month, and that's just not acceptable.
So what are you looking for, Toby? Where's this support that you are holding your hand out for?
So we think that the government needs to make a change to the eligibility rules around the winter fuel allowance to ensure that anyone with a terminal diagnosis, and the Department of Work and Pensions knows those people who are terminally ill because they're subject to special rules anyway, is able to access the winter fuel allowance. But we're also asking for the government to introduce a social tariff on energy, in the same way that we have a social tariff on things like water or broadband, which would give a discount to people who are either in low income or in particularly vulnerable groups, like people with a terminal illness.
OK, and you've got lots of specialists not only going into people's homes and doing that sort of Florence Nightingale moment of caring for people in their darkest hours, but you also have a whole host of experts that can give advice on how they can access support, on how they can best save money so they don't have to have this stress.
Absolutely. Anyone with a terminal illness who's worried about the costs of energy this winter can contact Marie Curie. We've got a team of dedicated energy support officers. They can either get those details by going to mariecurie.org.uk or calling 0800 090 2309.
Leave it there. Thank you very much indeed on this Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. Thank you. I think the thing that gets me most of all is the lack of humanity. That someone makes a decision which is obviously inhumane, and Toby's talking about 44,000 terminally ill people affected by this. You know what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing, and this has obviously always been a wrong thing.
Yeah, I thought Labour was supposed to be about compassionate politics, you know, socialist values, and these are nasty party policies.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, if someone said this was from a nasty Tory party, you would think, oh right, yeah. But, I mean, also, Labour today should be more heavily involved in the workers at Luton who are losing their jobs. There are 1,000 of them. What are they doing about there? They're a socialist party. They're supposed to be representing workers. Why are you not doing it? Paul Cout with the sport next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M9 in Edinburgh is partly blocked southbound by a breakdown at junction 1A at Kirkliston, causing queues. The M65 in Lancashire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 3 near Blackburn, causing queues. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed westbound after an accident between junctions 26 and 25 from Chain Bar to Brighouse, with long delays towards there. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, the outside lanes closed eastbound at junction 18 at Sinister Island after an accident, with queues back onto the M60 at the Swinton interchange. On the M1 in Leicestershire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 22 and 21 from Ashby to Lazouche to Leicester, causing delays. On the M40 in Buckinghamshire, there are southbound queues after traffic was stopped because of an accident just before junction 3 at Loudwater, with queues from junction 4 at High Wycombe. And on the M25 in Surrey, 2 lanes are closed anti-clockwise just after junction 13 at Staines.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We say hello, good morning, and welcome to Stephen Morgan, who is a schools minister. We're talking about today, and Stephen, you're making the front page of the Mirror today. This idea of breakfast for so many children. I'm always a bit torn on this one, because part of me thinks, who can't afford to give their kids meals? Is it my responsibility to feed Mrs. Biggins' kids? You know, when other people would happily do without themselves, just to provide breakfast and meals. And I speak, Stephen, I mean, not from an uncaring point of view, that, you know, I had 4 other brothers, we're council house people, we never once went to school without something to eat in our stomachs, and my parents hadn't got money. So I'm just wondering, what's gone wrong? Is it worse today than it's ever been?
Good morning, Eamonn. Well, we want to break down the barriers to opportunity, and too often in our country, background affects opportunity, and that's why free breakfast clubs in every primary school in the country, I believe, will make a big difference. We know that it's good for behaviour, it's good for attainment, and it's good for attendance as well, and it also will provide parents' choices around childcare. And we want to do this because we know it will make a big difference to children's lives and make sure that they succeed at school.
It sounds great. How are you going to pay for it? Not least when we're expecting to see this huge influx into the state sector because of this VAT tax that's being imposed on private school fees.
Well, Rachel Reeves set out at budget last month that we've tripled the amount of investment going into breakfast clubs to over 33 million. That will make a big difference with the early adopter scheme that we've announced today, involving 750 schools around the country ahead of national rollout. And I'm really excited to be delivering on this, fulfilling our promise to parents.
Yeah, but you're not referring to my question there about the private school influx, because you've modelled it on quite a modest number of up to 40,000 students coming into the sector, but the author of the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies report actually thinks that it could be 90,000 students, and therefore you'd end up spending more on education than you'd recoup from the VAT on school fees. So I ask you again, have you factored that in, and how will you pay for it?
Well, ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy will actually be a tough and necessary decision, but the right decision to make sure that every child in our country gets a brilliant state education. Our research, the evidence suggests that the impact on the system will be minimal, but I will not be unapologetic about making sure that every child in our country goes to a brilliant state school, and that's what this government is determined to deliver.
You have a lot of things to pay to create brilliant state schools, you know, and we're all in favour of those, and we all hope that you attain that. I suppose what I'm getting at, Stephen, is is breakfast the right place to put that? I mean, you did highlight in terms of concentration and attendance and all that sort of thing, but I think a lot of parents will be looking at that and say, why can't they pay for their own kids' breakfast?
Well, Eamonn, did you have breakfast before going to work today? It's so important that children attend school with food in their bellies, and we think this is the right decision to make sure that children are ready to learn, that they attend school on time, and to make sure that they achieve at school. And we know the research tells us that it can improve progress on maths, reading and writing by at least 2 months. So we think it's the right investment to support children in every part of our country to succeed.
OK, thank you very much indeed. We've got to leave it there.
I want to have a word with you about Luton, actually, before we let you go, and this announcement from Vauxhall that these green quotas that have been imposed are hurting them to the extent that up to 1,000 jobs could go there. We're seeing 800 jobs being cut also by Ford and Nissan, threatening similar problems in Sunderland. The Business Secretary said they're going to expedite a review of these quotas. What does that look like? Are you going to take away those penalties or perhaps introduce subsidies? Tell us more.
So obviously the Business Secretary will hopefully be making a statement later today in the House. We want to bring certainty and clarity to the industry. I know the Business Secretary is meeting regularly with the car industry, and we want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to support those affected in Luton. It's obviously an uncertain time for them, but we want to also deliver on our manifesto commitments to move to the things that we announced at the election.
It's the things you announced before the election. You promised growth. This is the antithesis of that, isn't it? And just yesterday, the Chancellor promising no further increases in tax, being contradicted less than 24 hours later by her own Business Secretary, saying that that's implausible. This is a government unravelling, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. We're fixing the foundations of our country and investing in public services. And my relentless focus is on breaking down the barriers to opportunity. And our announcement on breakfast clubs is a good example of that today.
Leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Paul Coyte's here with the sport. My goodness me, some mouth-watering fixtures tonight in the Champions League.
Actually, and I'm going to use a phrase of Stephen, I'm not going to be unapologetic.
I thought
about
that was funny.
I said double
negative there.
Not unapologetic. Anyway, Aston Villa versus great games. Aston Villa versus Juventus, Celtic versus Bruges, Liverpool face Real Madrid tonight. That's a glamour tie. Real Madrid, though, I've got
especially since Liverpool feel they've got a sniff at winning this.
Absolutely. I think they absolutely have. And Jude Bellingham's going to be playing tonight for Real Madrid. Wow. He said that he feels as if he's been a scapegoat for what happened playing for England. Let's have a listen to what Jude Bellingham said yesterday.
I've got to be honest, I think I lost my smile a lot after the Euros when it came to playing for England because of, I don't know, I felt like I was a little bit mistreated in comparison to what I contributed. I felt like some of it was a bit harsh on me. I think I felt a bit like the scapegoat. Maybe I was feeling a little bit sorry for myself, and I think that camp with a lot of new faces really brought out the joy in my game again. I think you could see that in the 2 games, but in general, I hadn't lost my smile in the Madrid shirt. Obviously, I'm annoyed when we lose, and I get frustrated and I get upset when we lose, but it's never a case of not being happy. You know, I'm the luckiest lad in the world. I get to play week in, week out for the biggest club in the world and represent my country. So, yeah, I think that was more to do with a little bit of how I was treated on the back of the Euros, but yeah, smile is back.
You know what I like about that? You know what I like about that is that at the start I was watching it and I'm thinking, oh dear, sounds a bit like spoilt, you know, and it's the fact that, oh, it's not really fair. And then he goes on to say, listen, I'm playing for Real Madrid. I'm playing for the greatest team in the world. You know, I've got a great job. I'm doing this and everything's good. So, you know, he's a future England captain.
Beats working for a living.
Absolutely does, yeah.
So David Coote is this referee who got himself in trouble before. He's front page again, front page.
Yeah.
What's the trouble now?
Well, we've already seen the video of him having a go at Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, and then there was the drugs thing that happened a week or so ago that came out. Now, the latest thing is that the FA are investigating very serious allegations that he was involved in talking to someone on the phone who then said, oh, I'd like you to book this player, Ezcan Alioski, for Leeds in a game that he was doing in 2019 against West Brom. And sure enough, David Coote did book the player. Now, there's no there's no doubt that he should have got a yellow card. But obviously, the fact that he's had the conversation and then had the conversation afterwards, basically saying, "Oh, you know, I hope you backed him as discussed to get the yellow card because he got it."
Yeah.
But you know, it's a bad look, isn't it?
It's a very bad
It's
look,
a really bad look. It really is.
My friend, cricket or Chinese shoe racing?
You know what? It's got to be the Chinese shoe racing.
Got to be, right. Tell us
the
about
12th National Traditional Games in Sanya in China. This is something we could do, the three of us. Look at this. It's board shoe racing, so there we are. Oh, look at that. We could do this easy.
Oh, my gosh.
It involves collaborative spirit and athletic prowess. Look at that. So if any one of you steps out of line, literally, you're on the floor.
It's like the three-legged race.
It is. It's a three-legged race.
What order would we go in?
6 legs. But there we are.
Look at the speed.
So you're on the boards, but you've got to run at exactly the same time. I mean, that's unbelievable, isn't it?
That's good.
Talk about working together.
I'm not sure
in harmony.
the point of it, but anyway, it's impressive.
It is. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right. It's all a bit, you know, cosy.
I think it's very good. Can you imagine a relay, though, and then you add one each time?
OK.
That would be
we'll
very
go off and think about that. Mr. Paul, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Norman Baker and Ian Paisley, we just need one more to get a three-legged race going, and they'll be here right after this.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Bansky's Girl with Balloon is arguably one of the artist's most recognisable images. So when a limited edition print signed by the artist was stolen from Grove Gallery in London, an investigation was launched by the Metropolitan Police's flying squad. The work was thankfully retrieved. The desire to own great works of art has once again become evident this week, albeit a little further afield on the continent. Police in Italy have uncovered a criminal network forging artworks by Bansky, Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso and others. Investigators said that they've seized more than 2,100 fake pieces of art with a potential market value of about £165 million. With me to discuss that case is the Chief Executive of Grove Gallery, James Ryan.
The art world needs to tighten up. It is known as a bit of a Wild West out there because people will try and chance it with these forgeries. You're quite right, there's only one actual original, but even auction houses have been hoodwinked before.
The burglary that you suffered is sub judice, so we have to be careful what we say about it. But it must have been a bit of a shock to you. I mean, was it a broken window, a smashed door?
At 10, 11 o'clock at night and just hammer straight through, shoulder barging through the door and then in and out, you know, gone in 60 seconds. I must say, I know...
Obviously, that targeted attack. The person would have known what he or she was after. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I must say, I know they cop a lot of flack, the police force, but the flying squad got the artwork back within 3 days. They were fantastic. So yeah, I've never heard or seen, other than the Thomas Crown affair type film, you know, I just didn't think it'd be happening to little old me, you know, in Fitzrovia, but it did, and thankfully we got it back.
GB News.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Norman Baker and Ian Paisley are going to discuss some of the stories making the papers today. We say hello, good morning to both of them. And Norman, let's start on smoking again. What angle have we got on smoking this time? This is in the eye.
This is the vote which took place in the Commons, where MPs voted by 415 to 47 to back the tobacco and vapes bill, which will ban the sale of tobacco to those born after 2008. And I noticed my Lib Dem colleagues were squeamish about this and said it was an issue of civil liberties, which I actually agree with. I'm not in favour of smoking. I don't smoke. I never smoked. But I just really think it's not for the government to start telling people when they can smoke and when they can't smoke.
I mean, where do civil liberties regarding children kick in? You know, if something's addictive, you don't give kids alcohol, do you?
No. Well, I mean, kids
This is about a generation who can go through without that addiction. We know that they're a public health. I just think the civil liberties argument on this particular bill is a bit flimsy.
Well, children already cannot buy cigarettes, and no one's suggesting that should be altered. And I support children not being able to buy cigarettes, but adults should be able to make up their own minds. This has gone too far, I think. If you look outside Paddington Station, around the corner from here, there is now a kind of sinner's corner out in the open, where a very small space where smokers are supposed to stand. You know, why can't they stand in the open air? What's causing a problem to anybody else? Why can't you be in the open air?
Because you can inhale it.
Which really get me in this. So, for example, there's hundreds of attacks on shopkeepers every day because they tell someone, no, you can't have something. So someone's going to come in 10 years from now and they're going to say, but I qualify to buy this pack of cigarettes. And there's then going to be an assault, there's going to be abuse or verbal abuse or something. And that's unfair. I just think it's one of those unworkable things that the government's picked up for all of the right reasons, but the unintended consequences mean that we should really be allowing adults to make those decisions. I mean, I don't smoke, I don't promote it, but at the same time, this just goes too far.
It's going to criminalise people who will then start
the shopkeeper will criminalise, not the person purchasing the cigarettes. It's the shopkeeper that's committed the crime. Right. No, it's not their fault. How can they tell the difference between a 24-year-old and a 25-year-old?
Yes,
That's bonkers.
So what do you do? I mean, you've had the unenviable position of representing people within your constituency in Antrim when you were there, who were making cigarettes. Yeah, and then you've got to look at these jobs going as well.
2016, the best paid jobs in Northern Ireland went overnight. And as a result of that, or gone overnight, and as a result of that, where did those jobs go? Well, did cigarette production go down? No, cigarette production increased, consumption increased, and those jobs moved to another country in Europe. Who lost in that situation? The employees and the country, and GDP and tax. We were the losers in that, and not the cigarette company. So I think what we've got to, say the unintended consequence of all these things. Yes, but Isabel, the reasons are always very good. Let's protect people. Let's concentrate on our health.
Isn't there a greater good? I mean, you both agree on this, but if this is causing sickness and killing people, is the greater good not?
So is alcohol. So speed.
Alcohol kills thousands every year, actually, and costs I know this was my Home Office time. Costs about £13 billion to the public purse every year, both from the health consequences of alcohol and from the antisocial behaviour that alcohol generates. So logically, the government should be banning alcohol as well. And sugar.
Well,
how far do you go?
Sugar
is the one now to look at. I really.
Where do you stop?
Junk food and all that. Yeah. Ian, let's talk about dentists. We were talking yesterday about how Wes Streeting promised on day one he was going to reform this crisis in NHS dentistry. We talked a bit about that yesterday. But this line in the Telegraph today is that after a £200 million boost, there are fewer NHS dentists who are actually seeing patients than before.
Yeah, this is what I don't understand. We're paying to fix the NHS, and we're not tiny amounts of money, but £200 million, a halo fund to come in to help dentists, and they're seeing hundreds of thousands fewer than they're supposed to be seeing. Now, this is a national audit report. It's amazing that the figures are saying this, but clearly something has got to be done to encourage NHS dentists to see more people, and throwing money at it clearly isn't just the answer.
Norman, yesterday the announcement that Rod Stewart was to play at Glastonbury, big thing for him, a man who's 80 years of age.
Yes.
Doing this. And I was saying, of all the pop artists I've seen in my time, I've seen him more than anybody else. I think I've been to 10 concerts or so.
Yes, well, he'll be singing Do You Think I'm 80, I suppose, rather than sexy, when he gets there. Look, I mean, his first single, by the way... I do a radio show with my music every week on my local FM station. I played Rod the other day, and his first single was 1964 on Decca. So he's been going quite a long time.
What was his first single?
It was a rather dodgy number called Good Morning Little Schoolgirl,
Oh,
as a matter of fact.
Let's gloss over that.
But a great B-side. I'm going to move to the outskirts of town. You did ask, actually, what it was, so I had to give you an
I
answer.
always ask the questions that make people uncomfortable.
But, you know, the thing is that I love 60s music, but all these people are now getting... They're all dying off, sadly, because they're getting old. They're all 80. I mean, Paul McCartney and people are 82, 83, whatever he is now.
Well, speaking of, well, it's a bit of a crude juxtaposition of stories, but, you know, talking about people dying off, actually, Ian, this is a lovely story about a man who loved life, loved music, made it to 112.
John Tenniswood. Wow. I mean, what lived a well-lived life. He retired in 1972.
Stop it.
In 1972. And people think it's all over when you're retired, don't they? Norman?
This is why...
Yes. And he had decades
This
more
is why we can't afford pensioners anymore. They live forever. So you say he was living well. I can't imagine at 112 things can be that sunny.
Well, he's quoted as saying that he had fish and chips every Friday night.
No.
And this will interest you, Eamonn. He was born 20 years after his favourite football club was formed, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Now, you go back through your life, now, Eamonn, you've lived longer than most of us around this table, and it feels that way, doesn't it? And how, I mean, all the things in his life, that he was the milestones that he's able to measure, incredible.
Born just after the Titanic went down.
Now, we built it. Yeah. It was the sailor.
But is it not crazy to think that the Titanic went down, he was born, and there's not a single other person left on the entire planet that was also born then?
Well, there must be almost nobody born before the First World War. He was 112, so he might be the only person...
Hard to contradict him when he said something, but I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an eyewitness.
I personally, I'm not interested in hitting 112. I don't know about you. Even if I'm having fish and chips on a Friday night, I don't want to live to 112.
No. Well, if I ever turn 45, I'll...
I'm not yet 45, so... right, Norman, let's talk about Time for Walkies, Duchess.
Yes. Oh, well, I always like a story from the Daily Star to finish with, you see. So here's the Daily Star, which says that this is picking up on what people are now calling their dogs. And apparently the inspiration for dog names is coming from, wait for it, Netflix. And some of the dramas there. So we're now seeing dogs called Duchess and Lord, and apparently dogs called Benedict have soared sixfold, and canines named Lady Penelope have almost doubled.
What do you call your dog?
I haven't got a dog. I had a cat.
What do you call your cat?
My cat was called Mrs. Peel. So that was a great name for her.
Now there's a name for you, isn't it?
What's your dog called?
Mrs. Peel.
Bob.
No, he's not a dog, he's a cat.
Oh, OK.
But Bob is now 20. And he's as big as a dog. I think he does one-arm press-ups on our doorstep.
Is that 112 in cat years?
Probably,
I think it probably is if you do the math. I like you even more now I know you're a cat person.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Have you got a dog?
No.
No?
Yeah.
No, how was your dog called?
Maggie.
Maggie?
Maggie, she was called Magdalene. We adopted her. And,
not after Maggie Thatcher?
No, she was
Maggie
named
May?
after the woman who was tending to her in the kennels.
OK.
So,
and when people come round who you don't like, you say, set the hounds on them.
We shortened it to Maggie because our son couldn't really say Magdalene.
My cat's called Hector. I don't know if that's inspired by anything from Netflix.
That's a good name. Hector's...
Is the Netflix documentary that was the inspiration for Duchess the Harry and Meghan's one?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't say here, but it could be.
Apparently the Queen's corgis were called Whiskey and Sherry, so she could be the Whiskey and Sherry.
Yes.
Well, that's lovely.
Have you seen my Sherry? Yes, I can see you could have said that, wouldn't she?
Well, Mrs. Peel was the first crush I ever remember.
I have mine too, I mean, I'm afraid to say. Yeah. Back in those days.
One named after the Avengers.
Yeah.
Diana Rigg, fantastic.
And then the new Avengers with Purdy.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. See you again sometime back after this.
Thank you.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of two halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a
largely dry picture. Good deal of sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland, so most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note, but as a result we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually through the early hours of tomorrow morning it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will start to see some clouds, some rain pushing in from the west-southwest, and here the winds are going to be picking up as well. Temperatures will be starting to pick up as we see something a bit milder coming in from the west, but for many it is going to be another chilly day.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M65 in Lancashire is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 3 near Blackburn, with queues from junction 5 at Guide. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed westbound after an accident between junctions 26 and 25 from Chainbar to Brighouse, causing long delays. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there are eastbound queues towards junction 18 at Sinister Island after an accident. On the M1 in Leicestershire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 22 and 21 from Ashby de la Zouch to Leicester, causing delays. On the M25 in Surrey, 3 lanes are closed anti-clockwise just after junction 13 at Staines for emergency repairs. There are queues from junction 17 at Maple Cross, and 2 out of 4 lanes closed clockwise just after junction 9 at Leatherhead because of flooding causing queues. And the M2 in Kent is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 5 and 4 from Sittingbourne to Gillingham, causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's all about British business going bust.
Vauxhall has announced the closure of its factory in Luton, putting 1,000 jobs at risk.
Just days after Ford also revealed plans to cut 800 positions, leaving many asking if the enthusiasm for electric vehicles is waning.
The business blues don't end there. London's Smithfield Meat Market and Billingsgate Fish Market both set to shut after 800 years.
A monumental turn of events in the Middle East as a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah begins. Is this the biggest win in Joe Biden's presidency yet?
I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end.
Morning. It's a wet and blustery start across the southern parts this morning. Further north, there's some frost and fog around, and more of that to come through tonight. Join me later for more details.
Hello there, good to see you. 1 minute past 9. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. So it is our top story today. The owners of the car maker Vauxhall have announced plans to close its company's van-making factory in Luton, which puts over 1,000 jobs at risk. That comes just days after Ford announced plans to cut 800 jobs, and Nissan very concerned about their factory in Sunderland.
Well, this closure has been blamed on flagging electric vehicle sales and the financial penalties imposed on car makers if EV sales make up less than 22% of what they're actually selling. By 2030, that will rise to 80% of all sales.
Well, the decision has spurred the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, to say he will have a very fast review and possibly change some of these quotas. We spoke to the government about this earlier. They were pretty vague on what that meant. Let's check in, though, now with our reporter Adam Cherry, who is at the Vauxhall site in Luton for us this morning. A depressing picture for them coming to work, not knowing exactly what it means for their future.
Absolutely, yes, and we're hearing reports that actually some of these staff were finding out online or via WhatsApp that their jobs were at risk rather than internally. Now, Vauxhall are saying they'll provide a relocation plan to other plants in the country, and not all jobs will be lost, but nonetheless it's a crushing blow, not just for Vauxhall but for Ford, as you mentioned. And we now hear the Business Secretary saying that he's concerned about this closure and the reasons for it, to do with that zero-emission electric vehicle mandate, because we're actually behind on these targets. When these mandates were introduced by the previous government, by now, this year, 1 in 4 cars were supposed to be, or expected to be, zero-emission electric cars, on about 18%, so we are behind. And there are now questions. What are we going to do about this? Because it's clearly costing jobs and the market isn't moving as expected. You heard from the government earlier, and as you say, it was relatively vague. Downing Street said yesterday that they were committed to the target, that zero-emission target by 2030. So maybe there'll be some subsidies, but it looks like they will keep the mandate, even if, as we're seeing here today, even if there are job costs as a result of that.
Lost, Adam. When are we talking about?
Say that again, Eamonn. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
The jobs lost, when would they be?
Well, the plant closes in April, so you would expect over the next few months those who will be affected will hear about it. Of course, relocating takes time, but you know, people found out last night, as I say, online, so they just don't know. We're hoping to speak to some people about this later today, and once we have that information, we'll bring it to you. But there's a lot of uncertainty for the people here and from the government. It's looking pretty dicey.
Thanks very much
Adam.
indeed. Lots of you have been getting in touch on this very topic all morning. Barry says EVs are too expensive, there's no infrastructure. Where do all the people who live in terrace houses charge their car? There isn't that sort of public confidence yet, is there, in the electric market?
Good comment from Red Devil. Red Devil says, so they took away the winter fuel payments to feed primary school children. Most of it will probably not get eaten either because they won't like it.
And on the issue of EVs, again, people don't want EVs because Ed Miliband's vanity projects mean we won't have the ability to power them.
Do you know, a lot of people talk about these markets around the world, and this is very, very true. Eileen says this, Jeff says this, Harris says this, and they talk about we're closing down Billingsgate and Smithfield. Whereas around the world, these are regarded as tourist attractions, markets like this. And we would all pay money or go on buses to see what happens at these big markets in Hungary and Portugal, wherever. And yet we're closing them down. So it's outrageous that London markets are closing, says Eileen. Spain, Australia, all have wonderful markets that have history, and the tourists love them.
Well, let's check in with Charlie Peters and continue our theme about British businesses going under. He joins us from Smithfield Market. Lots of concerned market holders where you are. Yes, a sad day historically, but was it just not economically viable anymore?
Well, that's the thing, Isabel. They were saying that running this location is going to cost the City of London Corporation £600 million, and that's the saving they've made by offloading this location, turning into what they're describing as a mixed-use cultural development. Essentially, one person here telling me that that could become basically another Covent Garden in the City of London. Smithfield Market, this building, it's gorgeous, it's iconic, and you can imagine it's all of these meat traders and those stalls being replaced by shops, cafes, restaurants and the like. But Eamonn, as you were just saying, this is an iconic location. People travel to come and see this place. And if it loses that ancient, that medieval, that 1,000-year histories of being a meat market, it might lose that edge. Nobody really wants to travel across the world just to visit another cultural development in the style of an open-air shopping mall. That's certainly a view I've heard this morning. But there are mixed messages from many of the traders here. Lots of them, as you've said, Isabel, are sad about the move. There is a Smithfield mentality, they told me. There's an additional level of pride of working here. But one trader did tell me earlier today that actually it's the right thing and it was a long time to overcome.
The Smithfield Meat Market is a very old establishment. It's in the wrong place now. Times move on. Maybe it's time we moved on. It's not. We've got to look at this as a positive and not as a negative. You can't look at it as a sad move. You've got to look at the positive. You've got to be positive and move forward. You're not going to move forward if you just want to draw the negatives out of it. We've got to be positive about this.
And that man has been working here for over 30 years. By the time he retires, this place will be closed down, 2028. That's when we expect the Smithfield Market to shop. Billingsgate, also the fish market down the road, that's also closing up at the same time. And Isabel and Eamonn, they were planning to relocate both markets to Dagenham in the capital's eastern suburbs. That plan fell through. It was a potential £1 billion development. Again, speaking to people here this morning, they weren't really confident that that was ever going to happen. One trader told me all roads lead to the City of London, but very few go to Dagenham comparatively. And so instead, there's going to be a compensation scheme. Any traders here, traders at Billingsgate as well, they'll be giving hundreds of millions of pounds by the City of London Corporation to relocate, to make those changes to their businesses that are obviously going to be affected by this. And earlier this morning, I spoke to Chris Hayward from the corporation, who told me why they'd made this decision.
Well, it's also not just about cost, it's about the changing, it's a sign of the changing times, to be honest with you, because meat distribution is being handled in different ways. We've seen that actually the levels of meat going through this market substantially reduce as people eat less and less meat. But the good news is that these traders, the vast majority of them, will be relocating elsewhere in London. So from the food supply chain point of view, food will still be easily accessible. So yes, I've got a tinge of sadness mixed with an ounce of realism, mixed with the reality that, frankly, the cost of repairing these ancient markets and bringing them back up to speed just was beyond our capabilities.
So, Charlie, interesting. Is he saying there that the jobs will be saved, that a lot of these guys will stay in employment, there will still be the distribution of meat as we know it?
Well, that's what they're hoping for. They'll just have to relocate and find a different place to do it. The City of London's also saying that much of the delivery now is being done online. These sort of very early morning overnight trading systems just aren't as common, just aren't as necessary for businesses these days. Again, I have heard contrasting views from many of the tradesmen that we've spoken to this morning, and they've taken particular trouble with that line you just heard from Chris Hayward about the decline of meat consumption. They say they're doing just as much a trade now as they were in the years gone by, and that even if there is a reduction in meat and fish consumption in other parts of the country or indeed across Europe, they're still supplying restaurants and businesses to the hilt. That's what they do. And I have to say, it's been very popular here when we were here in the early hours, as it has been for 1,000 years. But 1,000 years of history soon to wrap up with that decision made yesterday by the City of London to close this market and the Billingsgate Fish Market, two iconic medieval markets in the City of London, by 2028.
Charlie Peters, thanks very much indeed. Right, we'll turn our attention now to a long-awaited ceasefire agreement that's been reached overnight between Israel and the Lebanese militia Hezbollah.
It started early this morning, and we'll see Israel gradually withdraw forces from southern Lebanon. That's going to happen over the next 2 months.
Well, the US and France were responsible for brokering the deal. Let's have a listen to President Biden shortly after the announcement.
The deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities.
Well, moments after that announcement, Israeli strikes were reported on the northern Lebanon border, which saw 3 people killed.
Now, the deal doesn't address the ongoing conflict, though, in the Gaza Strip, and President Macron of France hopes that it will be an open path to end the war in Palestine.
Well, let's get the thoughts this morning of our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Good morning to you. Is that wishful thinking, perhaps, given that Benjamin Netanyahu has already said that he will double down on those Iranian threats, which, as we know, many proxies acting in Gaza?
Well, it's hoped it could add renewed impetus to the efforts to try to get a sustained and long-lasting ceasefire in Gaza. But, as you say, the situation there is very complex. We've got up to 100 hostages still unaccounted for, many of them believed still to be alive and being held by Hamas. But at least for now, we have this ceasefire in the north involving, of course, Hezbollah and Israel after months of fighting there. The early stages of these ceasefires are always precarious. You mentioned the bombardment that took place last night after the ceasefire was announced. That was before it officially came into play, which was again this morning about 2 a.m. UK time, so some 7 hours the ceasefire has been in place. There has been one incident in which the Israelis opened fire on a vehicle that was entering a prohibited zone because it will be a gradual withdrawal that Israel will embark in over the next 60 days, and Hezbollah will have to move further north of a river called the Litani River, about 20 miles from the Israel border. So if it all goes according to plan, then we could have a long-lasting ceasefire in the north, but I think we're still some way off a similar ceasefire in Gaza.
On a separate topic, can I ask you about the man widely perceived to be the, what's the phrase I'm looking for, the groomer, the man who helped inspire the Manchester Arena bomber. He was released yesterday from jail. Just 2 months ago, his parole was rejected, considered still to be a risk to society. What has changed in those 2 months, and should we be worried about it?
I think we should. It is a very concerning development. This is Abdul Rauf Abdallah, who was jailed in 2016 for encouraging and financing a number of extremists who travelled out of the UK to go off to Syria to join up with ISIS. And in 2017, he was visited in prison by his childhood friend, Salman Abedi, the Manchester Arena bomber. And the official report into the Manchester Arena bombings suggested that it was very likely that Salman Abedi was groomed and encouraged by this individual who's always denied that. But one of the more worrying aspects is the fact that the prison service, the parole board, prison officers, psychiatrists have assessed this individual and believe he still has extremist tendencies. He still poses a significant threat, and he was denied parole just a couple of months ago. But we're now at the stage where the prison term that was handed down by a judge is now complete, and so they have no choice but to let him out of jail. There will be restrictions, but he is just one of many Al-Qaeda era and ISIS era prisoners who are now being released back onto our streets, and it is an enormous drain for the police and security services to keep a proper eye on these individuals.
Thank you very much indeed. The time, 9:15. It's time now for the biggest and, some say, the Great British giveaway this year, with your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash.
It is the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Good luck indeed. Stay with us. Find out what's coming up in Britain's newsroom. We've got Bev and Andrew standing by in the wings. See you in a sec.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Telegraph now with bra news. And Lewis, do you remember when you took your girlfriend for her first fitting?
This is M&S Trans Row. I've got a youngish girlfriend. But
she was youngish when you first met her 20 years ago.
Yes, stay young. I don't know. I don't even want to read it. So it's so pervy. It sounds pervy. If I think it's pervy, it's probably very pervy.
Okay.
It says it's first bras for young things. They can't even say young girls.
Well, let's have a look at it. It is it's upsetting. Strong, smart, strong, supported. First bras for fearless young things. So this has been picked up. Actually, Bev Turner from GB News. Took a photo of it, put it online, it's created a bit of a furore.
First of all, those kind of bras are basically unnecessary. They were, when I was that age.
Wearing your bra?
Yeah, those bras, they used to call them training bras. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they really were necessary at that time because they didn't have like...
You've really got to the heart of this, haven't you?
The one time I'm not going to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's not, they're not really necessary. It's not... Because otherwise...
So really, this is a non-story.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I think it's... I don't know. I mean, there was a little bit of me that was kind of like, pick your battles. Is this the hill to die on? I don't know.
The young things, they're saying I would say it's a dodgy advert anyway, it feels like, because saying young things feels like... It's as it says here, like objective. It's sort of saying that they're objects.
Yes, but this is my point about the West. Like, are you aware of a company called Pretty Little Thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, one of the major brands for young women in this country is called Pretty Little Thing. I just think that's hilarious. Where were the feminists when they named that? So you go on the tube any day of the week and it says Pretty Little Thing, and there's these women in tiny dresses, and I don't know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, at GB News, we love to know what you think, and every day we run our own poll of the day. Today we're talking about the situation in Luton and these closures of the place in the Vauxhall plant, and also possibly up in, what am I trying to say? Sunderland. The Nissan, who knows? But anyway, our question was, is it time to dump the green agenda after the car manufacturer Vauxhall blamed the government's electric vehicle targets for the closure of their Luton factory?
Basically, nobody's buying them, right? And here's what you say. The results, 98% of you say yes to what?
Scrapping them.
Scrapping
the
them.
quotas, yeah.
2% of you say no, and the final result, not that it should change that much, will be with Martin Dobney at 3 o'clock.
Right, and just a reminder, if you haven't cast your vote yet, gbnews.com/poll is the place to go.
Andrew and Bev are here from 9:30. What's on the agenda, folks? Good morning.
Morning.
Morning all.
Big story, isn't it, about Luton? But my dad worked in a car factory, and if the car factory had closed...
Is that Honda?
Yeah, well, it was British Leyland, then became Honda.
Right.
But if the car factory... It would have been the death of the town.
Yeah.
It was just the major employer. I know things have diversified now, but it's huge. 1,100 jobs, then there's all the related jobs, the impact on local cafes, Newsday, everything.
And pushing people into poverty and all the rest of it.
All of that.
Losses. Yeah,
and all because of this mad dash to net zero.
Yeah.
And talking of industries closing, we're going to have Charlie Peters down at Smithfield Market. Have you had Charlie on this morning down there? That's a huge issue as well, really, in terms of the changing landscape of this country. Just
Because the mayor wants to drive it all further out east, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. And we're going to have Jacob Rees-Mogg's sister, Annunziata Rees-Mogg, in, because they are doing At Home with the Moggs. Jacob is going to be doing...
It's like the Kardashians.
Is she like him?
Is she like him? I haven't met her, I don't think. I've seen her on GB News many times.
Very
she's
similar politically.
Very smart.
She stood for the Brexit Party. She's very politically similar, and she's very nice.
Aesthetically quite different. I'd say Rees-Mogg's almost a bit more of a caricature. She's a bit more sort of contemporary. But I heard that actually it's Rees-Mogg's wife who's the star of the show. And I've not met her, but at a conference apparently she holds court and is the star of the show.
She's very funny, very clever, steely.
And has all the money.
She's got all the money. She's the heiress.
And it's a risk, isn't it, letting cameras into your family like that? It'd be interesting to talk to Annunziata as to why Jacob and his wife and the kids might have done that.
This is a sign that he still wants a political life, because if it works, it'll be very good for him.
Yeah. What else are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about the fact that Age UK have done some research to say how hard it's going to be for some elderly people to survive this winter with the winter fuel allowance going. And we're going to be talking to one of our GB News viewers about that and how it's genuinely affecting them in the real world.
Well, fantastic. I also am quite amused. I think this time yesterday we were talking about how the Chancellor promised no more tax rises, and it took less than 24 hours for a business secretary to contradict her.
In Parliament, I think she panicked when she was before the CBI, actually, the Chancellor.
Yeah.
I think she looked panic-stricken.
She sounded panic-stricken.
She did.
She talks very quickly at Rachel Reeves, and it's almost like the more anxious she gets, the more quickly she's talking. And I was driving in the car and listening to it on GB News, and I was thinking, I was saying, take a breath.
Yeah.
Slow down.
A genuine question. You know, Keir Starmer has a reputation for being ruthless, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might he cull her?
No,
because she's presided over absolute disaster so far.
It's very much his budget too.
He backs her all the way.
To the hilt. To the hilt. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of this reality show.
At Home with the Holmes?
Perfect. So you got the title. I should market that one.
Yeah.
Home with the Holmeses.
That would be eye-opening.
Would you want to do it, Eamonn?
No. Then, of course, somebody offers me £1 million, and
I
might have no principles about the whole thing. That might be it.
Although we were talking about OnlyFans off air, and apparently there's...
Well, let's give some context.
There are many celebrities now who are making more money off OnlyFans accounts, selling pictures of their feet.
Well, not just celebrities, people with talent and creative abilities, but actually finding it's not lucrative to create music and sell it and write lyrics, but actually to sell pictures of their feet. How depressing is that?
Really depressing.
Yeah, Lily Allen, Kate Nash.
Yeah.
Who wants to look at their feet?
It's a strange world.
Weird men.
Not this
Strange
man.
men.
Not this
Thanks
man.
for watching today. Bev and Andrew next.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update on this Wednesday morning. We have a tale of two halves out there at the moment. Some heavy rain across the southern parts. It's quite blustery here too. Further north, it's a frostier, foggier picture, and some fog patches here will last through much of the day. Further south, though, it's a milder, cloudier, wetter, windier story. A lot of the rain is clearing away towards the east, though across parts of the far east we may see some rain continuing as we go through this afternoon. Otherwise, a largely dry picture, good deal of sunshine across northern parts and in the far west, though temperatures may be a little bit down compared to yesterday, feeling pretty chilly, especially in the north. As we head towards this evening, by then most of the rain will have cleared away, just a few showers skirting around North Sea coastal parts, but it is still going to be quite cloudy across the southeastern corner of the UK. Clearer skies further west and clearer skies further north. Also some showers around coastal areas, not penetrating especially far inland. So most places across Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England ending the day on a dry, clear note. But as a result, we'll again see some fog patches forming and also some frost pretty readily. The showers will continue for a time around coastal parts as we go through the rest of the evening to the start of the night, but then most of them will clear away. So actually, through the early hours of tomorrow morning, it's looking dry with lots of clear skies, perfect ingredients for temperatures to drop. So there will be quite a widespread frost and we'll readily see some fog patches, some freezing fog patches, and these could be quite thick, could cause some problems, particularly in parts of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and could last for a large chunk of tomorrow. Otherwise, as we go through tomorrow, sticking with some clearer, sunnier skies towards eastern parts, but later on we will